Should I do it, Paulie?
You want it?
Yeah, I'll try it.
All right, here we go.
Yeah!
No, you're going to need better than that.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that much of a guttural scream sort of win.
You gotta go,
Yeah! All right, that's how Woods does it. Good morning! Welcome
Jesus.
back from the
How does he do that?
4-day weekend for us, holiday weekend. Hope everybody had a safe and happy Memorial Day. It is Ben and Woods. It is Ben and Paul, unfortunately, this morning. Not unfortunately because of you, Paulie, or me. Unfortunately because, as you can tell if you're on our YouTube stream, and you can tell by the lack of Woods' guttural scream to open the week, we have lost our colleague, at least for today, and who knows how long. He went and had a nice weekend up in Joshua Tree. Everything seemed to go well. And then when he returned, started feeling a little tickle in the throat and was worried because he had strep throat. It was not that long ago, a few months ago. And he wanted
every 6 months.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that, he didn't get that again because that was pretty miserable for him. So went in to maybe get some antibiotics, get that cleared up as quickly as possible. And they did a couple of quick tests and bada bing, bada boom, he's got COVID. So he is going to be quarantining at home for at least the next couple of days. He's fine. He said was actually feeling a little bit better and symptoms were very mild. So hopefully we don't have to shout out to his family anytime soon. But he is not here today, which means you've got me, I'm Ben Higgins. You've got Paul Reindl, our super producer and now executive producer and show host today. Paulie, how was your weekend?
It was okay. It was okay, my beloved Memorial Day weekend. I didn't get to do a whole lot. I hurt my back on Thursday night basketball. Suffered back spasms, I think really for the first time.
Ooh. Welcome to getting older.
Yeah, that was
that's not fun.
That was the thought amongst all my friends was, God, we're getting older, aren't we? I've had like the back tighten up before or something like that. This was like sharp contracting pain about halfway through the game. Pulled myself, could not continue. Couldn't even like bend down to grab my water or take my shoes off. It was awful.
I mean, younger people get hurt and injured all the time. I mean, we watch sports. We know that that's the case. The difference between being younger and being older is that when you get older, you get hurt and you don't know why. There's like no reason at all. You just all of a sudden are hurt.
Just
and you
hurts
go,
to get out of bed.
I don't know how that happened. I didn't do anything. Why is this hurting so much?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. That really is what changes when you get kind of 30s into the 40s. Like, how did that happen? Why am I in such pain right now?
Like, dude, I've had back soreness and tightness and had it lock up before, but this was like trying to take a deep breath, and it would just like the contracting pain, sharp pain. And then it was just so sore. I was so sore for like 2 to 3 days. It wasn't until like Sunday that I was able to like really kind of get around the house, moving around.
Was it a vertebrae issue? What was that, Paulie?
Well, I don't know if it was my back, my spinal cord.
I broke my back. Spinal.
Yeah, spinal. That's probably what it is.
Pulled a Mike Tyson.
Gotta be very careful.
Shout out to, I think he's in the chat right now, Dr. Alex, my teammate. He was able to, reassure me it wasn't like a pinched nerve or anything and help out right there on the spot and give me some good recommendations on how to mend the back.
Well, I'm glad you were able to make it because it really would be sad if it was just like me and Italian Paul. No offense to Italian Paul here today, but glad one of my coworkers was able to make it on a Tuesday after a long weekend that we have a ton to talk about. And when Woods posted on Twitter last night that he would be out today because of testing positive for the vid, as I think he put it.
The vid.
Yeah, I saw that one of our great tier ones, Brian, he's the photographer, right? Brian Sims.
Love Brian.
He's great. He said, oh, Ben's hosting. So, like basketball and golf talk this morning. And yes, I am going to start with a little basketball and golf because I think it is really relevant. Yesterday, spent pretty much all day. Got a call around...
I mean, if you're the Indiana Pacers, how can you blow that
Yeah,
game?
no, that's not what I was going to talk about. I got a call about 10 in the morning. I was actually just enjoying some Memorial Day coffee, chatting with my wife out in the patio, and I hadn't been looking at social media for like 10, 15 minutes, and I look down, and it's my news director at Channel 10, and I go, oh, uh-oh, what is it? And she immediately goes, how quick can you go? Can you come on the air? Can you be on at the top of our midday here at 11? And I go, what? With what? What's going on? She goes, Bill, with Bill. And I go, Bill. And she goes, Bill Walton just passed away. And I was like, oh no, that's terrible. I didn't even know he was sick. He seemed great. The last time I saw him wasn't that long ago. Seemed like he was the picture of health, but had been quietly battling colon cancer apparently for a while, and lost that battle yesterday at the age of 71. And the tributes just have been pouring in for the last almost 24 hours. Bill Walton was truly, I mean, you can't start a conversation about the greatest athletes to ever come out of San Diego without Bill Walton being right at the forefront of the discussion. Even some things that maybe I had known at some point that I relearned about yesterday and kind of going through his life. For instance, from his senior year of high school at Helix through his junior year of college at UCLA, he never lost a game. They were undefeated his senior year. They won the championship his junior year at Helix, and then they went undefeated and won another CIF title his senior year. The freshman team at UCLA, because at that time you weren't allowed to play varsity ball as a freshman, you had to play on the freshman team. They clearly went undefeated. It wasn't even funny how badly they beat all the other freshman team. In fact, I heard they even beat the actual varsity UCLA team in a scrimmage. I'm sure they kept that pretty quiet. And then his sophomore and junior years, they continued on with that 88-game winning streak. I think he was part of like 70-plus games of that winning streak until finally his senior year they lost that game to Notre Dame to end the winning streak. But can you imagine, I mean, going 4 years playing basketball and never losing a game the entire time? That's unbelievable.
Yeah, man, that bummed me out really, really badly when I saw that news yesterday. He was such a character, man. He was so full of life and color and just the way that he would take over and dominate a conversation, whether he was on a broadcast or not. I'm going to miss that guy.
Yeah, we had a chance to talk to him a few times on this show. I have interviewed him well, I say interview, and it is in big air quotes.
You more just gave him a platform to ramble.
Yeah, you don't interview Bill Walton. You say a couple of words, put a microphone in front of him, and then he'll talk about whatever he wants to talk about for however long he wants to talk about it, and it was usually a pretty long time. Even Scott Van Pelt last night was doing a reminiscing of one time he had Bill on in 2017, and Bill started talking about bears, not Cal Bears or Chicago Bears, just bears, like grizzly bears. And there's like a shot of Scott on the set just putting his hands in his face, like just, I can't do anything about it. You can't really stop Bill from going. It just continues. AJ Cassavell had a great tweet yesterday talking about a game that was delayed 5 minutes because Bill Walton brought out the lineup cards at Petco Park and just started.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Chatting with the umpires and everyone that was down there is going, Bill, everyone's here for the game and you're just talking and we're now 4 or 5 minutes behind. We were supposed to start this thing a while ago and you just keep going going.
That was Grateful Dead night, I think, at Petco Park. So, of course, you have to have Bill Walton there to throw out the first pitch, which he sailed over the catcher. And I remember that, and I think the video was going around yesterday because Annie was doing the in-game reporting for Fox Sports San Diego at the time, and she had Bill Walton mid-game, and the inning had ended. She couldn't get a word in. He just wouldn't stop talking, and she's trying to wrap up the conversation so badly, and there was just no point in even trying because Bill was not getting rid of that microphone. It was so good,
absolutely incredible. He was inspirational. He had time for just about everybody that he met and seemed to care about everybody he met. But as positive as he was, you just mentioned your back pain. He had such those debilitating spinal problems. Those after 39 surgeries over the course of his career and after his basketball playing days, in 2009 he was facing a total spinal collapse, and it got so bad he could barely move. And even Bill, the pinnacle of positivity, said he contemplated suicide. It was so bad, and fortunately he was able to get one final successful surgery that allowed him to live his life again for these last 15 years, ride his bikes, go out, be a speaker, do so much. He supported so many, not just basketball teams, but just everything in San Diego. Steve Fisher talked about how he didn't think he would turn around the San Diego State program without the support of Bill Walton, whose son Chris was one of his first recruits, and then helped land many other recruits with like visits to Bill's house when they would come to town. And he just talked up the program, was about as high as San Diego State as he was at UCLA, really in his later years. So did so much for the San Diego community, and was a really fantastic guy, and he will absolutely be missed tremendously. So we'll do an official shout out a little bit later in the program. But I said basketball and golf, and the other story I just wanted to bring up quickly that absolutely broke my heart over the weekend was the suicide of PGA Tour golfer Grayson Murray on Saturday morning. And I know that Woods has talked about, some of his mental health challenges and issues. I have family members who do it, and it reminds me, though, that I can't and never will totally understand depression. I don't think if you don't go through it yourself, you can't picture it, because I looked at Grayson Murray, and if you'll remember, he's the one who in January won in Hawaii at the Sony Open after giving up alcohol, was sober for 8 months, and he had been very open about his mental health struggles. He went out, he got help, he talked to people, he did the work to try to get better, and he got back to winning on the PGA Tour. I mean, he was undoubtedly, like, you think, the success story, like, to show you can fight depression, you can get over it, you can get your life back, you can have success, you can be on top of the world. He wasn't playing badly. He played decently the last few weeks. He was finishing still well on PGA Tour events. He's exempt for the next 2 years, safe through 2026 to make tons of money and be really on top of his profession and his career. And you think, how could a person like that who has worked so hard and has so much success and has knows what this is about and is being praised for it and has a support system, how can someone like that get so low that they could take their life? And it just reminds me that unless you are dealing with depression and mental health challenges, I don't know that I can ever truly understand like what's going through someone's mind like that. And it is so sad and such a heartbreaking story from over the weekend.
Yeah, you said it. Until you experience that even a little bit, you just can't really wrap your head around it. It's I've dealt with depression, nothing to that extreme, but I've had friends go through that. I've lost friends in the past where kind of the same thing, maybe not PGA champions, but you're like, you seemed like you had such a good grip on life and you had everything and everybody loved you, and you just can't put yourself in their shoes until you have no idea what they're going through. And I just think, kind of summing up Bill Walton's life and Grayson Murray's life, it's just, man, just be kind to people. Just be kind to people. It's very simple. You don't know what everyone's going through. Somebody could piss you off. You just don't know what's going on in their life. And that story broke my heart.
And don't judge by the outward smile or, the ease of their manner or anything, that it is something that can be hidden and even fairly easily hidden to people who they were even close to. So, yes, Brian, I did start by talking about basketball and golf with Woods not here. But we'll have plenty of baseball talk. We actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games since we last sat in these chairs on Thursday morning that the Padres played, and I believe they won 3 of them and lost 2 of them. We'll focus.
Sounds about right.
We'll focus certainly on the more recent efforts. People have probably forgotten about what happened last Thursday by this point, but we'll go through it all and set the menu for the show today, talk about the guests that we've got, including, as you'd imagine, a Major League skipper who will be joining us in the second half of the program today. And it's not a Mike Schilt Friar Friday either, but hey, the Miami Marlins are in town, so you can probably guess who's going to be on the show today. I'm only sad that Woods isn't going to be here for it. So we'll let you know what's coming up. We'll set the menu for Ben and Woods on a Tuesday morning. Hope everybody had a great holiday weekend. Back to work. At least it's a short week. That's the benefit of the Monday holiday. You only have to face the 4 days until Friday. That is all coming up today with Ben and Woods after our first check of traffic. I believe Kelly is also back on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Good morning. Very appropriate choice there, Paulie. Just got an email. Jane's Addiction coming to Gallagher Square at Petco Park on August 11th. Second date on their Love and Rockets 2024 tour. I'm sure if Woods was here and not home with COVID, he'd give you an entire treatise on Jane's Addiction, band members, guitar players, the times he's gone and seen them in concert, probably 3 or 4 times, or maybe he hates Jane's Addiction, and we'll tell you why they're a horrible band. I don't have such strong opinions like that song. I mean, I think they're decent, right?
I like them.
Okay, there we go.
I know Woods likes them.
Okay,
so,
he does like Jane's
yeah.
Addiction.
He would tell you all about the history of their bass player and everything.
Guitarist Dave Navarro and everything about Jane's Addiction. Why they're called Jane's Addiction. Woods would have the entire story for you, but they are coming to Gallagher Square on August 11th, and I went on Sunday to the Padres-Yankees game, and boy, this weekend was absolutely packed out there in Gallagher Square. It looks fantastic. The redo, Padres really did a nice job on that. I had friends from my buddy from New York was in town. He's a Yankees fan, so want to thank him because the only game he went to was on Sunday, which guaranteed, he said, the loss by the New York Yankees, who look completely unbeatable, of course, until he gets to a game.
Right.
And then the Padres go ahead and win the one that they needed to on Sunday. But actually, he had really good seats behind home plate, and I went and sat with him for a couple of minutes, but then it started getting crowded, and I didn't have a seat. So I was going up to the press box and got waylaid by M. Peter in our sales department. He was in the Odyssey box. He said, come on in. We got a couple of clients, but it was pretty empty in there, so I called Scott and said, come on up to the box for a couple of innings, and we got to watch the game from up there, and it was pretty cool. It was fun to go to the game on Sunday. I'm going again tonight. We're celebrating my son's 21st birthday. Of course, he turned 21 last week, but we got the whole family, and we're getting a suite for him and celebrating his 21st tonight. So hopefully the Padres can come through with a win against a very tough pitcher in Jesus Luzardo in Game 2 of the series against the Marlins.
Now, have you and or Jack, your son, heard of the 999 challenge?
999. It's got to have to do something with 9 innings in a baseball game.
That is one of the 9s. The other 2 9s are 9 beers, 9 hot dogs, in 9 innings.
We might be able to do the 9 hot dogs. I don't think he's had 9 beers since he turned 21, and that was like 7 days ago. He's just not quite into it yet. He's trying.
You know what, Ben? There's a time for everything.
We've sampled different cocktails, like ciders, a beer, and nothing has really tickled his fancy yet. Let's just say he's trying to find something that he can enjoy. Let's see, what did he had? He said something he liked. It was a some sort of martini, like a mango martini or something like that. It wasn't bad. He said,
son.
Just does not want to taste the alcohol at this point. So we'll see how. I'm sure there'll be a beer or 2 consumed. I don't know that there'll be 9 consumed.
All right. Just throwing it out there.
Maybe 9 hot dogs. That could actually happen tonight. Here's what we got coming up on the program today. We will start with yesterday's 2-1 win over the Miami Marlins, which. We'll have our Padres wrap-up. I thought it wasn't a great game by any stretch of the imagination. Teams combined to go 0 for 16 with runners in scoring position.
It was one of those boring, kind of tough to watch games, but hey, no complaining after a win.
But I thought it was interesting for a couple of reasons, and we can talk about it in our Padres wrap-up in our next segment. At 7 o'clock, I want to talk about what I think was the biggest development of the entire holiday weekend for the San Diego Padres. We'll do that, and since Woods isn't here, I've decided to replace Take on Woods today with a game of Padres Real or Fake. So I got a Padres player in the spotlight. I got 7 factoids, and you're going to have to separate the real from the fake for your chance to qualify for that trip to Las Vegas and the concert tickets. So we'll do Padres Real or Fake at 7:10 this morning. 7:20 is Don't Do This. That's where we probably will talk about Angel Hernandez in the big news yesterday. Umpire unexpectedly announcing his immediate retirement from Major League Baseball. So we'll do that in our DDT segment. By the way, spoiler alert, that's a do this. Angel Hernandez getting out of the game of baseball. But we'll talk about that coming up at 7:20. 7:30, we'll talk about the Yankees series as a whole. Padres obviously losing 2 out of 3, but didn't get swept, which was probably the most important thing that you could do against an absolutely scorching hot Yankees team over the weekend at Petco Park. Then our second half of the show is guest heavy. It's Tuesday already. That happened fast. So Jesse Agler, voice of the Padres, will join us for the Incorporator at 8:35. And if you've got some words, you can start dropping them into our YouTube chat or sending them to me at Ben Higgins SD on Twitter for the vocabulary word that he's got to incorporate into tonight's broadcast against the Miami Marlins. At 9 o'clock, as expected, we will be joined by the skipper of the Miami Marlins, who also happens to be named Skip. Skip Schumaker will be with us, and I'm a little bummed because Woods isn't going to be here for this. So he's obviously mad that he's not here to talk to Skip, and I worry that Skip will kind of be disappointed that Woods isn't here. Not that, he doesn't like the two of us, but it's always a little different. I mean, it hits differently when Woods is here. So we'll do our best with Skip. I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about. They've actually they have the second or worst record in the National League, but they've been playing good baseball lately. Even after yesterday's loss, the Miami Marlins have won 8 of their last 12 games. They've been getting really solid starting pitching, not a ton of offense, but they've been staying in games. They've been competitive lately, and that thing could have gotten away from them really quickly. And credit to Skip for just kind of keeping it together. It could have completely torn apart at the seams with the way that thing got started this year, and they've actually kind of bounced back and are playing some better baseball right now.
Talk about getting no help from upper management there.
No, none at all. I mean,
there was a point earlier in the season where is Skip even going to make it to that Petco Park series at the end of May? And he has. And I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all pretty sure he's just kind of managing out the string this year, both by.
Which is tough. That's a tough spot.
By it's by mutual decision, in Miami that they all, Skip doesn't want to be around for whatever they're trying to do in Miami, complete teardown again, which is fair. Skip was the manager of the year last year. He shouldn't have to be locked into a team that is going in a different direction than the one he was promised.
We were in the playoffs last year.
And, he'll have opportunities going forward. Where, I'm not sure, but there will be opportunities for Skip. And, Miami with a new general manager, he should be allowed, whatever he's doing, to pick his own manager going forward. So it seems like that's what's going to happen next year. But for now, Skip is keeping it together, at least for the time being with the Miami Marlins. We'll talk to him at 9 o'clock. And then at 9:35, I invited on a longtime friend of the program, guy I've known for many years, Jim Brogan, who was a teammate with Bill Walton back on the San Diego Clippers in the early 1980s. And like Bill, is one of those guys who exudes positivity. Mm-hmm. You have a conversation with Jim, and you come away with it struck by just his outlook and his optimism, like you did when you spoke with Bill Walton as well, and wondered how much of that, what they learned from each other back in the day when they played basketball together. And Jim's been a basketball commentator and basketball coach for many years, and I thought he'd have a good perspective on the life of Bill Walton. So we'll chat with him in our final segment at 9:35 today, and that's pretty much the schedule for the program. Sans Woods on a Tuesday.
It's a tasty menu.
We will get to our Padres wrap-up of yesterday's quiet 2-1 win over the Miami Marlins with the highlights from Jesse and I believe Bob on the call again with Tony doing TV this week with Don Orsillo. That is coming up next with Ben and Paul on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. All right, enough with the Jane's addiction, Paulie. We already talked about it last segment.
This one was the system just put this one in there. So I told you, Woods programs the music for the show. He put in Jane's addiction. He likes Jane's addiction.
Woods programs the music for the show, except for our Tuesday morning open, which was my choice.
Yes.
Jukebox Hero by Foreigner. Other than that, pretty much every song you hear is a Woods choice on this program, which is fine. It's his wheelhouse, and I let him do that. And he's not here today. He is recovering from the coronavirus as we speak.
Some guys just can't handle Joshua.
Apparently not. He went to that Integratron thing that my wife also went to. It's this weird, perfect sound dome thing. Had an amazing story about meeting his friend from the Afghan Wigs. Saw the pictures of the studio. Yeah.
That he got to go check out, the music studio where they recorded, I think, their last album. It looked awesome.
It looked awesome, but also to me it looked a little scary, like somewhere in like a horror movie that's about a band's music studio,
secluded cabin,
secluded in Joshua Tree, and you go and people start mysteriously disappearing or something. That's what it looked like to me. A little creepy actually, but Woods will give you the whole lowdown when he comes back. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe the day after that, maybe next Monday. I don't know. We'll find out when he's.
You better be back by Monday because your boy's going to be in Vegas Monday and Tuesday next week.
Paulie's got your anniversary coming up. Happy early anniversary to you and Megan.
Thank you. Yeah, Thursday night anniversary. We'll do dinner, and then we are hopping on a plane Sunday morning, heading out to Vegas for a few days.
Yeah, it's the start of summer vacation time for everybody after Memorial Day.
I think it's like we looked. It was like it's going to be like 100 this week in Vegas, but then it's going to cool down to about 92, 93, which is perfect.
We're actually going to Palm Desert this weekend for my wife's birthday, and it's going to be around 100, but we're going to get a round of golf in and celebrate her birthday, but that's just 2 quick nights, and I'll be back for the show on Monday. I'm not going to miss any shows. So, all right, let's get into some Padres talk. We'll wrap up our 2-1 win over the Miami Marlins yesterday in our Padres Wrap-Up. They've been the Florida Marlins for 8 years? But, always living in the past. We'll do that after a check of traffic here on 97.3 The Fan.
From the 97.3 The Fan Traffic Center, here's Kelly Danick.
Traffic is sponsored by Air Max, San Diego's highest-rated heating and air company. Visit them at airmax.com. Just one problem here, northbound side of the 805 before Nobel. There is a collision over the right shoulder. A couple vehicles involved. So the crash has cleared on westbound 78 at the 5 connector. Looking for the best in HVAC? Choose Air Max, San Diego's highest-rated heating and air company with free diagnostics on all repairs and estimates. See why over 1,300 happy customers have given Air Max 5-star Yelp reviews. See Air Max today at airmax.com. I'm Kelly Danick with Ben and Woods, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
I love winning, man. I love winning. You hear what I'm saying? It's like better than losing.
Oh, my God, I'm so stiff.
Miss any of the Padres win yesterday? Ben and Woods didn't.
What up, crew?
We've got you covered with all of the highlights.
I like it when the Padres win.
Yeah! Yeah! It's the Padres Wrap-Up, presented by Hamul Casino. With thrilling slots and tables and all the best rewards, Hamul Casino has all the fun you're looking for. Hamul Casino, fun above all else. Yeah!
Give me a do damage.
Do damage!
One pitch hit in the air to deep left field. Gordon is back. He is at the wall. Gonna look. Gonna go! Home run, Donovan Solano. First as a Padre as he gets his old team. And 1-0 San Diego in the second. 2-0 pitch, swung on, hit in the air to deep right field. Tatis back, all he can do is watch. That's a long home run for Jazz Chisholm Jr., his 8th of the year. And just like that, this game is tied 1-1. 3-2 to Cronenworth. Bender delivers, and outside ball 4. Kim will score, and the Padres lead it 2-1. Suarez trying to collect save number 16. The pitch is a broken back roller to third. Manny charges. He's got it. Fires to first in time, and the ball game is over. Robert Suarez, a 1-2-3 ninth inning, as the Padres get a bases-loaded walk after a pair of errors in the bottom of the 7th to go ahead and beat the Marlins 2-1.
Yeah, I just wanted to applaud Kimmy, for getting that inning started. What a tremendous at bat. I don't know how many pitches there were, but how many? 9? Yeah, nice 9-pitch at bat. out of his tail off and got a pitch he could handle and smoked the ball to center and got us started. And took advantage of an opportunity, and Crony had a nice at bat. We had some balls right on the screws, hit us some people with some people out there to bring home, and they were staying in the right place. But it was a big at bat by Crony, and the bullpen did their part.
Paulie, have you ever taken one of those Rorschach ink blot tests? You know what I'm talking about, at least, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I have not done that.
They show you these just like splotches, and then the psychiatrist will tell you what do you see.
First thing that comes to mind.
First thing that comes to mind. And I guess there's some sort of it kind of tells them where your mental state is, like what you see. I don't know exactly how it works. I've just seen it on TV mostly, doing those Rorschach ink blot tests. And I think yesterday's Padres game is a bit of a Rorschach test for Padres fans. What did you see in that game yesterday? Because we all watched the same game, but I think a lot of people came to different conclusions about what that 2-1 win over the Marlins actually meant. If you're the kind of person who sees kind of a negative sort of ink blot, it was a pretty sad performance in which the Padres went 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Very reminiscent of last year's struggles. Yeah. They continued to not hit left-handed starting pitching, getting just one run against a very, very mediocre starting pitcher in Trevor Rogers that had been, 6 ERA going into the game. Other teams have been pounding him. Why weren't the Padres able to put up more runs? Looking at my ink blot here on the YouTube stream right now. I think they all look like butterflies, though, so nothing ever really changes. But if you're Mike Schilt, you saw a very different ink blot. And you saw what he said after the game. He said, good teams take advantage of opportunities that bad teams give you. And the Marlins, I said on TV last night, the Padres didn't so much win that game as the Marlins lost it and gave it to the Padres with 2 errors in the 7th inning rally by Tim Anderson. Rally that really should have never happened. Yep. Padres didn't really do anything to deserve that run other than a really good at-bat by, both Ha-Seong Kim and Jake Cronenworth at the end, fouling off pitches, getting to a full count, and eventually drawing the full count walk. And ultimately, if you're the kind of person who sees kind of a positive ink blot, you look and say, well, yes, they only won 2-1, but it's a 1-run win, and that's something the Padres struggled with badly last year and are doing much better with this season. And you also had a lot of balls that were hit hard. I mean, the home run there by Donovan Solano, I think, was the 10th hardest hit ball by the San Diego Padres. The hardest hit ball was Jackson Merrill with the bases loaded in the 5th inning, and it just happened to go straight to Jazz Chisholm in center on a line drive. But you can also see the at-bat before that and go, Luis Campusano, why are you swinging out of your shoes with 2 strikes and 1 out on a sinker that really was kind of at the thigh high, perfect to hit somewhere and get a run in at least. And you're falling over, swinging so hard, trying for a grand slam. It's it's not what you're supposed to be doing in that situation. So I don't know. I mean, you look at that game and you can see it any way you want. Was it a good win? Was it a ugly win? Was it just a game that the Marlins lost? How do you feel about yesterday's 2-1 win? I
mean, ultimately, I think it just depends on if you're a naturally optimistic or pessimistic person. Mike Schilt is a very optimistic person, almost to a fault, and we know that now at this point with Mike Schilt. I think a win is a win. I'm not going to complain too much. I do think that I would tend to agree that the Marlins lost that game more than the Padres won that game, but you got to still hang in there. The bullpen coming in and just shutting the door for 4 innings of relief.
Correct.
I mean,
Adrian Morejon, 2 more hitless innings. His ERA is 2.08. He's been a really solid option.
He's kind of the go-to right now.
Long relief out of the bullpen for the Padres.
Yep, and I have loved what I've seen from Estrada. He didn't pitch yesterday. I know we're going to talk about him in a little bit. The bullpen's really kind of starting to come into shape, which is, I think, a big positive. Could the Padres have done better with runners in scoring position? Yes, of course. Did they just capitalize on errors? Yes, but you have to do that. If they're going to give you a gift, you can't just waste it and leave runners on, which we've done that all weekend long. We've done it all season long. But a win, ultimately, I'm not complaining.
Michael King was also pretty good. I think we have Mike Schilt talking about Michael King. 5 innings, not deep into the game, but only gave up the 3 hits, the 1 run on the Jazz home run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, and Mike Schilt talked a little bit about the performance of Michael King after the game.
He had a fair amount of deep counts. You know, they put some good bats there. Excuse me, they were patient off of him. Thought he did the ball well, 7 punch outs, 1 walk. Thought everything was good coming out. You just got to a certain point where after 5, is it, 88, 89? And just, he's probably could grab 1 or 2 guys, but that was really starting to get into Adrian's lane. So just made the decision, especially with Michael, we're not going to limit his workload. We're going to pitch him when we need to pitch him, but the tiebreaker went to Adrian today just based on the number of pitches and, being the 5th at 89 and being Adrian's spot.
Ultimately, they got what they needed from Michael King to end up winning that baseball game. I will say the one thing the Padres definitely did better than the Marlins, and it doesn't always matter, but in this game it absolutely did. They put the ball in play better than the Marlins did. Padres only struck out 4 times in the game. The Marlins struck out 11 times. So that's 7 more options that something good like an error can happen when you're not striking out. And it did. Eventually, it happened a couple of times just by putting the ball into play. Now, most of those extra, balls in play were just outs for the San Diego Padres. But they played a clean game defensively. They didn't give it away. They didn't make any errors or do anything. They walked fewer batters than the Marlins pitchers did. I think 2 walks compared to 3 and a hit batsman. And the Padres had more base runners, double the number of base runners as the Miami Marlins, 12-6 over the course of the game. Now, can you lose games when you have double the number of base runners as the opponent? Sure. I feel like we saw it a dozen times last year that the Padres found ways to lose those games. But ultimately, in baseball, you're going to have a much better chance to win when you've got traffic on the base paths. Now, you can give those away by going 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position, and the Padres did their best to keep the Marlins in that game yesterday. But fortunately, they also came up clutch. The Marlins were 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position, and if you went to that game yesterday, you walked away feeling like Padres had a win, but you weren't necessarily enthralled by the best baseball game you've ever seen in your life. There are 162 of these things. They're not all going to be masterpieces, of baseball perfection, and that was just one that exists in the continuum of baseball and ends up as a victory for the San Diego Padres.
We have those games, it feels like every couple weeks probably, where if the Padres would have lost yesterday's game, we would have just said, you know what, that's one of those. That was so boring. It was uninspiring. Just flush it, move on to today. Even with the win, it still kind of felt that way. But again, I go back to a win is a win, and I'm happy with that. I think it's great to get that first win of the series. Luzardo pitching tonight for the Marlins hasn't been, the Cy Young caliber type pitcher that we've seen in the past, but he's still dangerous. So to get that first one was a huge thing for the Padres. I don't know if it had to do with the fact that it wasn't quite an early afternoon game, but it wasn't a night game either.
Technically, it was a day game. Anything that starts before 5 p.m.
There we go.
It counts as a day game. And the Padres have been really good in home day games and really bad in home night games. So, they're supposed to lose tonight and then win tomorrow in the day game in the homestand finale.
Lining up perfectly to win the series.
To do exactly what they've been doing all season long. Now, I hope they win tonight because we're going to the game, but probably the toughest matchup with Jesus Luzardo on the mound against Matt Waldron for the Padres in this series. You know me, for me, it's never too early to keep an eye on what other teams are doing, but I think officially now we passed over the weekend the 1/3 mark of the Padres baseball season, and Memorial Day is generally also a day that even like baseball executives and coaches circle on their calendar is a good spot to kind of evaluate where your team is, not necessarily make big changes yet or hit the panic button, but you've got an idea of who you are and where you stand after the first third of the season at Memorial Day. And Padres now, a day after Memorial Day, are currently tied for the second wild card spot in the National League with the San Francisco Giants, who have been very hot lately. They beat the Philadelphia Phillies yesterday 8-4.
They're a streaky team. I feel like it was just last
They were
week
following
they were
up-
riding
no,
a
it was.
8-game losing streak or something.
A week and a half ago, they were talking openly about how putrid they were playing and how things were looking so bad. They lost Jung Ho Lee, their center fielder, for the season with an injury. And for a second, it looked like, well, maybe you can just count the Giants out this year. Like, they're done. Well, after that, they've won 9 out of 11. They beat the Phillies, who have been the best team in baseball. And they are now tied with the Padres, both of them passing the Chicago Cubs, who have been struggling and lost to the Milwaukee Brewers 5-1 yesterday. And Craig Counsell's returned to Milwaukee for the first time. He was booed by that Milwaukee Brewers crowd for leaving and going to a division rival for big money in the offseason. But the Cubs have fallen all the way back to 500. So right now it's the Braves, the Giants, and the Padres who are currently the three teams holding the wild card spots in the National League. Again, just 1/3 of the way through the season, but you start getting that idea of who you are and where you kind of fall in the pecking order of the National League after the third of the season.
Yeah, Dodgers have lost 5 straight or 6.
Yes, they have. They got swept by the Reds over the weekend, and don't look now, but the Padres and Giants are both just 5 games behind the Dodgers in the standings. That's not necessarily breathing down the Dodgers' necks, but it was like 7.5 or 8 a while ago. And if I'm a Dodgers fan, it's not a trend that I like to see,
Right.
considering how much I spent on our team in the offseason and the fact that it looked like they were putting that thing away by the time May was over. And it's just close enough where you could say, well, let's see what happens over the next month. And if there's still 5 or less games back when we get to the end of June, then all of a sudden you go, well, maybe the NL West is still in play, whether it's for the Padres or the Giants, if they keep playing the kind of baseball they've been playing. So that's your update from yesterday. When we come back, we got some Padres real or fake, try to qualify someone for Las Vegas. But I think there was one huge development for your San Diego Padres since we last talked to you. We will discuss the player in particular that may change the course of the season coming up next year on 97.3 The Fan. Looking up at my television, MLB Network on, and I see Jake Peavy on the screen, actually talking about Blake Snell's early season struggles with the San Francisco Giants. Got an ERA over 10 in his first 5 starts. Blake says, you got to go to spring training if you want to get off to a fast start, which he didn't. Did not sign, of course, until the very end of spring training with the Giants. And I think fairly predictably, new environment, new team, no spring training. There was really no chance that Blake was going to get off to a good start. He'll probably figure it out at some point, but has not gone well for him. But I bring up Jake Peavy because until Sunday, Jake Peavy held the record for most consecutive strikeouts by a San Diego Padres pitcher with 9. He no longer holds that record as it was broken by one of the most unlikely candidates possible. Someone that was not even on our radar when we went to spring training. I don't think it's someone that we talked to or even thought about while we were at spring training. But obviously the Padres were, and that is Jeremiah Estrada. And I want to talk about why Jeremiah Estrada may be one of the keys to the season at this point for the San Diego Padres.
3-2, swing and a miss. Estrada got him with a fastball, and Jeremiah Estrada has struck out each of the last 10 batters that he has faced.
Paul, you remember the one thing we said about the Padres offseason that A.J. Preller did pretty well was address his bullpen. And, you know, even though Josh Hader was gone, we thought, okay, he's picked up some veteran pieces. Things look pretty decent in the bullpen. And then the season started, and the bullpen was kind of a mess early on. Other than Robert Suarez, things were very dicey. Everyone was like good for an outing and then bad for an outing. Yuki Matsui was good, and then he was bad. Daniel De Los Santos was good, and then he was giving up home runs. Wandy Peralta was good, and then couldn't get anybody out against the Colorado Rockies. And it was a real issue. But
It's been a roller coaster.
But if you've noticed over the last couple of weeks, the Padres bullpen has been metrically the best in baseball. And a large reason for that has been the emergence of Jeremiah Estrada, a Chicago Cubs cast-off, a claim that the San Diego Padres made in the offseason. One of those Ruben Niebla success stories where they kind of tinkered, changed the pitch, the change-up and the sweeper, just working on the different, secondary pitches to go with what was already a very lively fastball, dial in his command. And all of a sudden, Jeremiah Estrada went from a guy who opened some eyes in spring training, didn't start the season with the San Diego Padres, came up and was then just pitching in the very lowest of leverage situations in games that were already, well decided in the 8th or the 9th inning, to then someone who was coming in, when the game, key batter here or two that you think that they can get him out. And all of a sudden now has emerged as the number one setup option for Robert Suarez in the 8th inning, culminating in his last, 3 outings in which he has struck out 10 consecutive Cincinnati Reds and then New York Yankees, 5 up, 5 down on Sunday in a game that the Padres absolutely had to have, including some of the key hitters in their lineup like Aaron Judge, guys who have tortured Padres and other pitching so far. And Jeremiah Estrada has just come in and make it look very easy. And he'll try to build on that 10 straight strikeouts when he comes back. Maybe today, in fact, tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if Robert Suarez gets the night off, having pitched 4 outs on Sunday and 3 outs yesterday. He might need a day, which means with Estrada getting yesterday off, he could be the closer, looking for his second save. He got that one last week when Suarez came in the 8th inning. Maybe he'll get an opportunity at a second save tonight if the Padres have a small lead over the Miami Marlins in this game. But Jeremiah Estrada has stabilized a bullpen that in a game earlier in this season, yesterday's 2-1 win, felt like it was a game the Padres would find a way to lose with that bullpen earlier in the year. And even though Estrada didn't pitch, just the fact that he's now there and, giving other guys, not having to overwork some of the other setup guys and relievers helps everybody up and down the bullpen, which has just been much, much better overall these last couple of weeks.
I think about back in January, we were all out at Padres Fantasy Camp. We were talking with Trevor Hoffman, and we were talking about role definitions in the bullpen. Is it important for Mike Schilt to name a closer and kind of define the setup man and start defining all of these roles? in spring training before the season starts. And he goes, yeah, it's important. You want to have that role definition in your bullpen, but you don't have to have it day one. You kind of let it come to you. And I think that's exactly what Mike Schilt did, because for the first month at least, and probably more, it was kind of trial and error.
Yeah.
Who was going to be that eighth?
It was like Yuki Matsui at the start, and then, it's Aniel, and it's Wandy. He's the eighth inning guy. Now, it's Jeremiah Estrada.
I mean, at least as of right now, there's no question it's Jeremiah Estrada. He has just been electric, and that bridge from him to Suarez is filthy. And I was thinking the same thing, that, you can definitely see him closing out a game or two when Suarez is down. Yeah,
it's hard not to say that Jeremiah Estrada has now been tested at the ultimate level. Will those pitches hold up against the best lineups in baseball? Well, he just faced it. The Yankees, no one has been hotter. No individual player has been hotter than Aaron Judge. And he got through the gauntlet, and he just continues to strike guys out. Now, will that continue forever? No, just like Robert Suarez's scoreless streak finally ended on Sunday with that solo home run by Alex Verdugo. And that barely got over Jose Azocar's glove. Almost had. I thought he had it when he came back.
Oh, yeah.
Brought it back in. So
the reaction.
it did end, but he still got the save. An inning and a third, his 15th of the season. Estrada won't be perfect, but he has been a huge, huge boost to the Padres bullpen, which now feels like you turn over a lead to it, and you feel actually pretty good that they're going to be able to get it home and get that win for the San Diego Padres. So, I thought that was the biggest development since we last sat in these chairs on Thursday. The Padres bullpen, and specifically just the continued meteoric rise of Jeremiah Estrada from literally out of nowhere, pretty much, to being now, I think I saw his strikeout rate is now second in baseball, only to Mason Miller, the phenom for the Oakland A's. He is striking out nearly half of the batters he faced, and 100% of the batters he's faced in his last 3 outings and his last 10 batters faced. Need a contestant. We're not playing Take on Woods today because that Woods chair is empty. So if you want to play a little Padres real or fake, chance to qualify for a trip to Las Vegas, you can call us 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. While you call in, just a couple of other thoughts on that Sunday game. Just like yesterday, it was a small ball rally that did it for the Padres, the 4-run 6th inning that included...
one of the most bizarre innings you'll ever see.
Just like yesterday, 2 errors by the opposition. Padres taking advantage of the opportunities that were given. Pulled out the bunts, the suicide or safety squeeze by Ha-Seong Kim that brought Manny Machado home, and then he got on due to the error by Anthony Rizzo. You had the 1 RBI single by Luis Arraez. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit like a dribbler about 38 feet, and that turned into an RBI single. Kind of goes back to what I said, putting the ball in play, which has kind of been the mantra this year for the San Diego Padres for the most part. Good things can happen. They don't always happen. Sometimes you hit into a double play. Sometimes you pop out. Sometimes you hit a roller right at someone. But when you strike out, nothing really good can ever happen. When you put the ball in play, sometimes the other team makes a mistake. Sometimes the ball finds a hole at least. And the Padres have been doing that much, much better this season. So they did it the last 2 games. It turned into 2 wins. They're back to a game above 500 at 29 and 28 as we head into Game 2 against the Marlins tonight. All right, I see full phone lines for a little game of Padres real or fake, so let's get to it.
Some are here for the compelling sports talk with Ben and Woods. You can go plow through another donut. It's time for Real or Fake on 97.3 The Fan. Tell the people what they'll win today.
Real or Fake today brought to you by Valvoline Instant Oil Change. It only takes 15 minutes and you don't have to get out of your car. For directions and discounts, go to SoCalOilChange.com. That's SoCalOilChange.com. And we got Mike as our contestant today. Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm good. All right. If you can get 4 out of 7 right, like our usual Thursday games are Real or Fake, you will qualify for our grand prize 2-night stay at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino and 2 tickets to Warrant, Lita Ford, and Paralandra on June 22nd. Get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. So like I said, with no Woods, we're going to play a little Padres Real or Fake. And today, we are talking about Jake Cronenworth. We got Jake in the spotlight. I have 7 statements here about Jake. You have to tell me if they are real, true, about Jake, or fake, false, about Jake Cronenworth. And again, 4 out of 7, you qualify for Las Vegas. It's that simple.
Easy
Mike, are you
enough.
ready to play?
Do it.
All right, you got no one to help you, so you're on your own. It's all you.
Okay.
Round number 1. Jake's first career home run came against the L.A. Dodgers. Real or fake?
Say real.
Says real, and you are correct. August 2020, during the COVID season, off Dustin May of the L.A. Dodgers. That's 1 right, 3 more, and you are in the drawing for Vegas. Round number 2. Jake was drafted in the 34th round of the 2015 MLB draft. Real or fake? Mike?
Let's go fake.
Fake! That is absolutely fake. He was a 7th round pick of the Tampa Bay Rays. This is an easy game. All right, we've got 2 right, 0 wrong as we go to round number 3. Jake is the Padres' all-time leader in getting hit by pitches. Real or fake?
Fake.
Fake. Obviously hasn't been around that long. It's real. It's real. No one in Padres history has been hit more times than the 40 that Jake has been hit. He passed Chase Headley for that honor and has 2 more than any other Padre in history. More than Tony Gwynn.
That is surprising.
More than Tony Gwynn has ever been hit in Padres history. How about that? All right, that's 1 wrong, but you're still in good shape here as we go to round number 4 of Padres Real or Fake. Jake is the most recent Padres player to hit for the cycle. Real or fake, Mike?
Fake.
No, it's real. He's the 3rd and most recent in July of 2021. Matt Kemp, of course, was first. Will Myers was second. And Jake did it just out of the All-Star break in July 2021. So that is now 2-2 as we go to round number 5. Late in the 2021 season, Jake played all 9 positions in a game, catching the 8th and pitching the 9th in a loss to the Rockies. Real or fake?
Fake. Gotta go fake.
He actually didn't. You're correct. He asked Jace Tingler if he could.
That's right.
And Jay said, no, you can't, even though he was the emergency catcher and he has done some pitching in the past, which brings us to your potential winner here, number 6. Jake led the 2015 Michigan Wolverines in saves. Real or fake, Mike?
Fake.
That is real.
Oh,
8 saves for Jake for the Michigan Wolverines in his senior season, which means, as always,
How does this happen
it
every
comes down to
single
round
time we play real or fake? It goes 7 rounds.
number 7 for all the marbles and to qualify for the trip to Las Vegas. Real or fake, Mike? Growing up, Jake was travel ball teammates with Pete Alonso. Real or fake? Got my poker face
Gotta
on.
stick with fake.
It's going to stick with fake. And Mike, the correct
Mike.
answer is...
No.
Oh, real. Yes, they played on a team called the East Coast Grays together. Jake and Pete go way back, which means, sorry, Mike,
He's off to such a good
you
start.
did not qualify. After getting the first 2 right, he loses 4 of the last 5 to drop out and lose this one 4-3. I'll probably have another game of Padres Real or Fake tomorrow, I'd imagine, unless Woods makes the miraculous recovery in 24 hours, which I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed. But, Mike, thank you for playing, and we'll try again tomorrow. All right, we'll come back. We've got Don't Do This is coming up next. Kickers. Can't live with them. Probably actually could live without them, really. I mean, if you wanted to just go for it all the time and go for 2-point conversions. But, man, kickers. And then Angel Hernandez. Big announcement yesterday. We'll get to both of those stories. Coming up next after a check of traffic here on 97.3 The Fan. Don't do this. Like, don't go to Joshua Tree and get COVID. Don't do this. Brought to you by the Craft Taco in Sorrento Valley. Do go to the Craft Taco. Check out some of the best quality tacos in all of San Diego. Go to thecrafttaco.com. Take a look at their happy hour specials today. Thecrafttaco.com. Well, I'll just get this done in the absence of Woodsy today. First DDT story comes from the NFL, Paulie. And two women who are suing Jacksonville Jaguars kicker Brandon McManus, saying that on the team's flight to London last year, that he sexually assaulted both of them. The women claim in a court lawsuit that he tried to kiss one of them during meal service and then grinded up against both of them. And they are seeking damages and up to $1 million in a jury trial against Brandon McManus, who, by the way, and this is kind of the funny part of the story, is no longer with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was not re-signed in the offseason. Already had signed, though, with, of course, the Washington Commanders. So gets to be the new problem in Washington as well. And continues a recent story of headlines for kickers that aren't necessarily the most flattering following the Harrison Butker speech at Benedictine College.
Making all the news this offseason.
I mean, we don't need to know that much about kickers. They aren't. I'm sorry. I've liked some kickers in the past. Rolf Bernurschke, great guy. They're not real football players. They're just not. They're the most separate from the team. There's 52 players, and then there's the kicker, and he's not really part of the team. Even when they try to make him part of the team, he's not.
You see it a couple of times this season, I feel like, where a kicker gets hurt randomly, like pull muscle or something. And guess what? Somebody else comes in and just kicks a field goal.
Now,
I'm not saying it's easy to do. I'm just saying they're kind of easily replaceable.
Now, I wasn't on the plane. Don't know what actually happened. I do find it unlikely that two women just decided out of the blue, which one of these players on this plane can we say grinded up against us? I mean, it's not like people didn't see it. I assume there's going to be some witnesses if this does go to a trial that, was Brandon acting a fool? Had he had too much to drink? What was going on here? Can't really just say, oh no, it was in a closed room, no one was there. This was during meal service on an airplane, so can't have possibly been completely private. Right. And if it's gotten to this point, seems like there's something there. So kickers in the news again. Second don't do this story, and this is just kind of a sad one, but the Atlanta Braves, if you saw it over the weekend, lose Ronald Acuna Jr. for the season again.
Are you making the don't do this, don't get hurt?
With the torn ACL.
Don't tear your ACL.
Well, I mean, I'm not blaming Ronald Acuna Jr. for it, but, obviously one of the most exciting and talented players in baseball and the defending MVP in the National League, but has had now two major injuries early in his career.
Different knees?
Yes, different knees.
He had the same injury on his other
side,
yeah. God, man.
Just, and it's nothing to blame him for, but if you're the Atlanta Braves, I guess you can point to the fact that, hey, we won a World Series last time he went out. Maybe we'll do the same again, but that seems more like the fluke as opposed to you'd rather have Ronald Acuna Jr. for the season. Definitely weakens the Atlanta Braves lineup and a team that we talked about that the Padres could be competing against for a playoff spot. They currently are the wild card leaders. Padres are tied for second with the San Francisco Giants, but Padres won the season series against the Braves with Acuna, and now the Braves have to go forward without Ronald Acuna Jr. the rest of the season. That's just a don't do this for anyone when you lose a player of his caliber for the rest of the year. It's a loss for baseball as well.
It's an interesting connection to our third story because Ronald Acuna Jr. being out with an injury like this is bad for the game of baseball. You want your stars to be on the field. He's such a positive player. He's so much fun to watch, and the sport takes a hit with him out now for the rest of the season. And on that note, it brings us to do this.
DD Mega Doo-Doo.
Happy day.
Oh, man.
For baseball fans, players, coaches across the country. Out of the blue. The news yesterday, I think first reported by Bob Nightingale and then The Athletic and ESPN's Jeff Passan. So it's absolutely real. MLB umpire Angel Hernandez is retiring. And not like at the end of the season, not, in a couple of months.
Like last night.
He is retiring effective immediately. He is retired. The guy who at least fans have always thought, and many players and managers as well, as being the worst baseball umpire over the last decade plus, and he's actually been in the game for 3 decades, is gone. You don't have to worry about Angel Hernandez calling a strike 1.5 feet outside of home plate anymore. You don't have to worry about him overreacting to a sideways look and tossing a player. You don't have to worry if you're in the stands. He once threw out Chicago Bears great Steve McMichael at Wrigley Field because McMichael said something over the loudspeaker during the 7th inning stretch, and he was singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
I've actually heard from guys that played the game that, yeah, he's not a great umpire.
He's a good
but
guy.
He's such a nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
And that may be true. I've never met Angel Hernandez. He could be a fine human being.
I've heard the same thing.
He was terrible.
You know what? Now he
at
has
his job.
more time to be a really great guy.
He can be a good dad, a good husband, whatever. He was bad for the game.
I'd imagine he's getting a nice payout. Like
the game is
from
better without
baseball
him.
for this, so he can spend time with his family, which is what he said he's going to do going forward. There's a couple of things that are interesting here. First of all, dreams really do come true because fans have been like tweeting for this to happen for years and years. And you just sometimes assume as a fan, no matter how badly you want something in sports to happen, it's never actually going to happen. Right. Umpires just, they've got a really strong union. There's not much you can do about it. They have evaluations, but ultimately in the end, it doesn't really matter. I mean, he sued Major League Baseball twice, I think, and lost. And he still has his job. I mean, still had it the entire time, but finally, somehow, Angel Hernandez is out of the game of baseball, and you don't have to dread like looking at the umpire assignment and saying, "Oh no, he's the first base umpire. That means tomorrow he's going to be behind home plate in our game. What's going to happen?" So, ultimately a good day for Major League Baseball to get that guy out. Now,
Jeff Passan from ESPN, he doesn't tweet a ton. He doesn't write a ton of stories. He goes for quality over quantity, and when he is out there reporting on the retirement of Angel Hernandez, and Bob Nightingale puts out a story on USA Today to break the news. Like, the fact that was news is proof of just how bad he was at his job and how big it is that he's finally out of the game of baseball, because umpires retire all the time. They don't get Jeff Passan tweets and stories and columns about them. They don't get featured in radio segments because it just happens. He was so bad at his job. I can't even imagine the thousands of bad calls he has made over his 30-year career.
Now someone else will now be the worst umpire in baseball. Who knows? Doug Eddings. I saw him call one like 1.5 feet outside for a strike. Very funny by Pitching Ninja, who said, "Touching tribute by Doug Eddings to Angel Hernandez on his retirement," calling this guy out on a pitch that was nowhere near home plate. But a little don't do this in that Jeff Passan story. It's there's some quotes from Rob Manfred, who talks about the evaluation of umpires and how it all works, and how Angel Hernandez was not evaluated well. That's why he wasn't working World Series or League Championship Series games. Hadn't done so since I think 2005. And they get bonuses and extra pay for doing those games. So that's why he sued baseball, because he never got those prime assignments. But they said, well, you're not good enough to get those. And the judge quickly dismissed the lawsuit, going, they evaluated you and you stink, so they're not putting you in the big game. Sorry about that. But this quote just made me laugh from Rob Manfred. Having said that, I think the management of umpires is a physically demanding job. It's a physically demanding job. Do you have to carry them around the country? How is managing the umpires? I mean, maybe it's a mentally challenging job with all the evaluation and training and everything that goes on, but it's not a physically demanding job, right, Rob? I mean, what are you doing with these umpires that I'm unaware of that's making it a physically? I know they're heavy, but I don't think you personally have to lift them or put them on your shoulders or anything. It's not a physically demanding job. Being commissioner of baseball is not physically demanding at all.
Can we get Rob Manfred to go next?
Yes. I mean, hey, if you tweet
When's
enough.
that story?
I mean, it took 30 years. We got Angel out. We're about 20 years away from getting Rob Manfred out of baseball as well. Keep those tweets coming. It does work eventually if you try hard enough.
Maybe Angel Hernandez just logged into Twitter and saw his mentions and was like, I got to call it a career.
Try finally. And that's Don't and Do This for a Tuesday.
That was Don't Do This with Ben and Woods on 97.3 The Fan.
We got more Padres talk coming up. Really do want to talk about the weekend series against the New York Yankees, who Bronx bombed their way into Petco Park on Friday and Saturday. Really impressive display by that team with the best record in the American League. Kind of also, I think you can see where the Padres stand. And I want to talk about that coming up next. With Ben and Woods, Paulie, no Woods today on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Paulie just reminded me of a bonus do this that we should probably mention.
Awesome.
Congratulations to our colleague, Tony Gwynn Jr. This was very cool. So over the weekend, he went out to Cooperstown, New York, to play in the Hall of Fame East-West Classic. It was part of a game, brought back many old stars of the game to help open up their new Souls of the Game exhibit on Friday. Had over 5,000 fans at Doubleday Field in Cooperstown for a fun game, kind of like an old-timers day game. And Tony Gwynn Jr. hit a home run and helped his team, Team East, to a 5-4 win. I don't know why he was on Team East and not Team West, but congratulations to Tony Gwynn Jr. I mean, there were some big legends in the game. Ken Griffey Jr., Fred McGriff, Eddie Murray, Jim Rice, Dave Winfield were all playing on one of the teams. And then Tony Gwynn's junior team included his buddies Jerry Hairston and Doug Lanville, our friend, was on the team as well.
Adam Jones,
Justin Upton, Tyson Ross. I mean, like some guys who were not that far out of the game, so it was actually some like real baseball being played, and very cool for Tony to get to do that. And he was back yesterday calling the game on television with Don Orsillo, but he missed the weekend series against the New York Yankees. I do want to get into those games. We talked a little bit about Sunday's win, but I want to get into the story that just would not go away. Not my favorite part of the whole weekend, but one I think we have to talk about right after a check of traffic here on 97.3 The Fan.
From the 97.3 The Fan Traffic Center, here's Kelly Danick.
Traffic is sponsored by Airmax, San Diego's highest-rated heating and air company. Visit them at airmax.com. Couple of problems here, guys. Crash on northbound 5 before mild cars way. Got a car and motorcycle involved in this one. It's got the fast lane blocked. Tow truck is on scene assisting with that. Also going to find an accident on the transition ramp south 67th, the westbound 8 connector ramp. It's over to the right shoulder. Looking for the best in HVAC? Choose Airmax, San Diego's highest-rated heating and air company with free diagnostics on all repairs and estimates. See why over 1,300 happy customers have given Airmax 5-star Yelp reviews. See Airmax today at airmax.com. I'm Kelly Danick with Ben and Woods, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
I know I sit in this chair, so I'm supposed to have a hot take on Juan Soto's return to Petco Park and whether fans should cheer him or boo him. To me, it's like one of the dumbest stories out there. There's really no right or wrong answer. If you wanted to cheer him for being a solid member of the Padres, had the best season of any Padre offensively last year, and when he first got introduced, if you wanted to cheer him, I have no problem with that. He's also playing for a team that's trying to beat your team, and if you want to boo anybody on the other team, I also don't have a problem with that as well. I don't think it's classless to boo him. I don't think it's required to stand and cheer him when he's coming in with another team. Obviously, if you're booing him because you think he betrayed the San Diego Padres, you're an idiot, because that's just not what happened. He didn't sign as a free agent somewhere else.
There's somebody out there who's thinking, I booed him because if he doesn't want to be here, then he was traded.
It was pretty dumb, actually, when Padres fans booed Kevin Brown, like betraying the Padres for signing with the Dodgers for $100 million when the Padres didn't offer anywhere near that. But at least that was a guy who made the conscious decision to go and play for the rival. So Be mad about that. Juan Soto was traded by the Padres. He had no choice in the matter, didn't have a no-trade clause, could not do anything about it. If he wanted to continue his baseball career, he had to put on Yankees pinstripes and go on. And, yeah, he's having a good season, and if you're frustrated that he's brought the Yankees more success than he did the San Diego Padres, blame all the other Padres, I mean, yes, Juan Soto's been terrific, and of course, he goes deep in his first game back at Petco Park. Paulie, that was like just as obvious as anything that was going to happen all season long.
Benny, the plus 277 odds that I had on a Juan Soto home run on his return to Petco Park was it was the easiest bet I have ever placed.
Not only did he cash in, but of course in that same inning off Yu Darvish, you had both Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton all hit home runs in the third inning as the Yankees went on to an 8-0 win over the Padres in the series opener. Thought one Eric Hosmer had a very interesting point on Twitter over the weekend about that inning. Did you see this? He so he tweeted that he thinks that Luis Campusano was kind of to blame for all of those home runs, that he was tipping the pitches too early. For instance, setting up...
Campy was tipping the pitch,
not you. Campy was setting up too early for the high fastball that Juan Soto hit. And then he had points on both of the other batters as well, that they looked like they knew what was coming. And while usually the first thing you look at is the pitcher and how he might be tipping the pitches, Eric Hosmer actually thought, and another good point made on Twitter by Mr. Good Points on Twitter now, Eric Hosmer, that you have to be, especially against veteran hitters like the Yankees have in their lineup, the catcher has to be more deceptive and wait a little bit longer, because even if they're not doing the peek back, they kind of get the sense of the guy, okay, he's rising up for a high fastball. Juan Soto kind of knows that stuff. And, he can take his best swing at what he thinks is going to be a high fastball if he knows what pitch is coming. Is it true? Is it not true? I don't know for sure, but, it was an interesting point that was made by Eric Hosmer on Friday about that game.
Eric Hosmer.
Of course, the Padres continued their struggles against left-handed pitchers. That really hasn't stopped. Carlos Rodon with 6 shutout innings in that game. Just a kind of a yucky night for Padres fans on Friday night against the Yankees. And then the Saturday game wasn't that much different. Aaron Judge starts with the big 2-run home run off Dylan Cease in the first inning. And you can say, here we go again. It's the Padres. I will give some credit. Aaron Judge is insanely hot. He's been doing this to everyone for the last couple of weeks. Hottest hitter in baseball. And, Dylan Cease made a bad pitch there, and they actually did, after that, contain Aaron Judge the rest of the series. The Padres, again, they'll go scoreless until the 8th inning when Fernando Tatis Jr. finally hits a home run to end a 27-inning home scoreless streak for the San Diego Padres. I mean, that is...
Oh, my God.
That is depressing when you're a fan, especially you're a season ticket holder and you're going to every game. Like, you've got the 81-game package and you pretty much don't miss a game. And you go to basically 3 straight games without seeing a single run by your team. And that's the first time that had happened since the opening 3 games of 2016. Oh, that was brutally depressing when they got shut out by the Dodgers in all 3 games of the first series of the year. That was awful. So was this. I thought it was very interesting that Tatis did not do his stutter step around third
bring that up, yeah,
on the home run. What did you think about that, Paulie?
I noticed it. First of all, I was like, I saw it when they showed him rounding third. I go, did they miss the stutter step? Did he not do it? And then I don't remember exactly. Do you have the quotes that he had after the game? Something about just
I don't have the direct quotes, but he basically said
not
that just
feeling
wasn't
himself.
feeling it. Just not. I mean, it was.
I guess I kind of can respect that.
Of course.
There's that dialogue that you hear, garbage time home runs, or like, love to see the guys, slapping each other's asses when they hit a home run down 6 or something like that. And that, they weren't down 6, but that was one of those moments where it's late. You're going to lose this game. You've gotten bodied now 2 nights in a row by the Yankees. And I kind of like that he didn't do the stuff.
It is something that I have seen other even Padres fans mention. Like, read the situation. That when you're down, a solo home run does not call for any showboating celebration. However, when he doesn't do it, it's also a kind of a cause for concern. Like, wait, what happened to the confident, bordering on cocky?
We're talking about it on MLB Network as we speak.
Yeah, I'm not swaggy right now.
That was the quote. I'm not swaggy right now.
And now that he doesn't do it, I
agree with him. He's not.
Yeah, he's not. The home run didn't really change much. He did have the very short dribbling single on Sunday that helped in the 4-run rally against the Yankees. Had a hit
All
yesterday.
the home run did on Saturday night was make it that we didn't go scoreless in 2 straight games. I mean, it was nothing. It meant nothing. They got bodied in Game 1 and Game 2 against the Yankees. And yeah, I think it's probably a bigger conversation than just that game or that moment with Fernando. That spark is missing. Even when he gets on base, it just doesn't feel the same as it used to. His energy level, his, and I don't want to say, he doesn't care or anything like that. I think that's the complete opposite. I think maybe he cares so much that he's trying maybe too hard. I don't know what it is. Something just feels off with Fernando.
I feel like there are 3 players on the San Diego Padres who can truly provide a major spark. And while Jurickson Profar has kind of done that, and I think he's got some of those qualities, I think the 3 holdovers, the guys who have been on the team for years, who really can provide a spark, are obviously Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, who can put a team on his back when he is playing right and being Manny, and the other one's Ha-Seong Kim, who with his energy and just the way that he kind of flies around the field, he can also be the spark for the team. And none of those 3 guys is having the kind of season that you would expect from them. Tatis's numbers aren't horrible, but they certainly aren't anywhere near what you want from Tatis. Manny's numbers are terrible for Manny. And Ha-Seong Kim has been struggling, especially offensively, all year long. His defense has definitely gotten better.
I would also put Jackson Merrill in that conversation. He's got some swagger to him.
He does, but he's a rookie.
He's a rookie, 100%.
And I don't think you can look to the rookie. He could at some point.
He could be. I expect him to be in that conversation with a guy that can hit a big home run, turn to the dugout, fire up his teammates. Like, he's got the swaggy.
And if you look back, if you had said that a third of the way through the season after Memorial Day, that none of those 3, and put the numbers together, and they're all well under their career averages, really struggling, I'd say, well, the Padres are probably, fighting the Rockies for last place in the NL West? I mean, that's hopeless right there. You have no hope if those 3 guys aren't doing anything to spark your team, right? There's just not enough other players out there that can help you. So the fact that the Padres are 29-28 with a winning record, currently holding, tied for the second wild card spot and 5 games behind the Dodgers, is a minor miracle at this point, and a testament to what they've gotten from
testament to future MVP Jurickson Profar,
Cronenworth, Merrill, the bullpen, and some of the other players who have gotten off to better starts, and quite frankly, and yes, this will be somewhat pandering to our weekly Friday guest, testament to Mike Shildt as well, who I don't know that Bob Melvin would have been able to save this team from 3 struggling superstars and the funk and the lack of swagginess that Fernando Tatis Jr. is talking about. Feels like last year that would have taken the team down. And for whatever reason, it hasn't taken the team down this year. Is it all Mike Shildt? I'm not naive enough to think that the manager has that much influence on the team. It's not all Mike Shildt. It's probably only a little bit Mike Shildt. But it didn't happen last year under Bob Melvin when guys struggled. It just kept getting worse and worse until the last 3 weeks of the season. This year, though, despite the lack of swagginess, despite the lack of home runs from your big stars, somehow the Padres have a winning record. They are treading enough water against one of the tougher schedules in baseball in the first third of the season that they are where we actually kind of hoped they would be when we started this year. Where would you want the Padres to be at Memorial Day? Can they be around 500, game above 500 against that schedule? We would have taken that. And as I look back at the first third of the year, especially thanks to that win on Sunday over the Yankees, I only see one series the entire first third of the season where I'd say I was concerned about the Padres. That, of course, was getting swept by the Rockies. Mm-hmm. Getting swept by the Phillies, guess what? The Phillies are historically good so far this year. Yeah. They've been doing that to everybody until they've cooled off just a little bit the last few days, but they've been just mauling everybody. Losing 3 to the Phillies is not a reason to concern. Even losing to the Yankees wouldn't have been a huge level of concern, considering they have the best record in the American League. They were red hot coming in, but you got the one you needed to avoid the sweep there. There really hasn't been that much to hit the panic button about with the San Diego Padres. They have been challenged a number of times, and they have come out on the other end okay. They've done all right through this first third of the season. And I don't, unless you're an absolute hater, I don't think you can come to any other conclusion that it's been a pretty decent first third of the season for the San Diego Padres. Now, a long way to go. The season can go many different directions from here. If Tatis and Machado don't get going, they're gonna fall off a cliff at some point. But if they do get going, bullpen has been looking pretty good. Starting pitching has now had, I think, more good starts than bad starts lately.
If and when the superstars get going, you got to hope that the rest of the guys that have carried you up to this point, they got to just at least still hold their own.
Even Jerickson's cooled off a little bit. Jake hasn't been quite as hot as he wasn't early, and they're still a game above 500. So
there's still, there's still plenty to be concerned about.
Of course,
the fact that they cannot win at home,
it can't beat left-handed pitching. There's plenty to be concerned about. They're not a perfect team. They're not on the level of the Phillies or the Yankees, I don't think. Or the Dodgers, probably, even though they've won 5 out of 8 against the Dodgers. But they're on the level of every other team that's a playoff contender in baseball. They're on the level of the Braves and the Cubs right now. They're on the level of the Giants. They're on the level of, some of the better American League teams. They're not outclassed by anyone so far that I've seen other than maybe the Phillies. But the Phillies have been outclassing everybody. So, yes, I'm an optimistic, positive person like Bill Walton. I will see the good and I will see the bright side. I am not completely oblivious to the fact this is not the best team I've ever seen. Far from a perfect team. There are, as you said, many things to be concerned about. But through 1/3 of the season, I'm all right with what I've seen from the San Diego Padres so far this year.
When you look ahead at the month of June, that's going to be a very big month for the San Diego Padres. They play a lot of very beatable teams, and for a team that has struggled to go on a run and get 5 or 6 games above 500, the next 7 series going to be very telling.
The Mark in the chat says Ben's polishing a turd right now. No, it's not a turd is what I'm saying. I don't need to polish it. It's fine. It's just a stick or something. It's not that bad. All right, we're halfway home. We'll be back with more next on The Fan. Oh, that song always gets me fired up. Hour number 3, Ben and Woods on a Tuesday. Best wishes to our colleague Stephen Woods, who is home with the coronavirus. Yeah, it's still out there.
Still a thing.
Fortunately, a mild case. He says he's feeling all right. Hopefully he will be back soon. I think it caught him very off guard that's what he had. He was expecting a different sort of diagnosis, maybe strep throat again.
Strep throat, and I think if this was 3 years ago, he's probably thinking, "Oh my God, I got COVID." Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the one of the telltale signs was tickly throat.
Yeah.
And still a thing. Be safe, everybody. Wash your hands.
He is vaccinated, though. That does help keep the symptoms more mild, and hopefully he'll be fine and back soon. But until then, you are stuck with Paul Reindl and myself. Ben Higgins, we got a good second half of the program coming up at 8:35. It is a Jesse Agler Tuesday. We will be joined by the voice of the Padres, talk about the weekend that was against the Yankees and yesterday's game against the Marlins. Give them an incorporator word for tonight, which, by the way, is the belt bag giveaway. And just got the preview in here. Adam brought in the belt bags with the City Connect colors, the one that Mud has been wearing, either as a fanny pack or shoulder strap.
Over the shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, works either way. Good to carry. I think this is good for in the ballpark as well, right? It's a small enough size that you can put your wallet or keys or stuff in these bags and take them even into the ballpark, which is perfect. So that's for tonight's game against the Miami Marlins. Also brought in my first look in person at one of the Joe Musgrove basketball jerseys. That's going to be during the next homestand in early June on June 11th. First 40,000 fans in attendance will take home a Joe Musgrove basketball jersey presented by Motorola. In fact, they come in, I like this, they come in 5 different sizes. Perfect. First come, first serve. It's not like one size fits all, which is what happens with so many giveaways. And they'd be too small for me, they'd be too big for my kids, and doesn't even matter. But with 5 different sizes, should fit most Padres fans if you get there early enough and get your choice of what you want. Tickets are available, and you can check out more at Padres.com/giveaways. I don't know.
Will you put your jersey on?
Did I put it on?
Are you going to?
I'm not going to. Adam said I had to give it back to him.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, I got a Xander Bogaerts bobblehead as well. He's been talking about that one. That is during the Diamondback series on June 6th, presented by Coca-Cola.
It's always tough to have a bobblehead
when you're injured.
For a player that
it's better.
Hurt.
I mean, it's better than having a bobblehead for a player you've already traded to another team, which has happened more than once in Major League Baseball where a team does bobblehead giveaways. I mean, there's a Ha-Seong Kim bobblehead later in this season. No one's 100% sure that Ha-Seong Kim will be around. What do you think? Still here after the trading deadline, considering he's going into free agency? He's probably, it's probably not a high priority for the Padres to re-sign in the offseason at this point, to be honest with you.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But he also, they need him right now, especially with Bogaerts hurt.
Right.
They're going to need his defense out there, and there's no guarantee that Xander's going to be back anytime around the trading deadline either. So I don't know that you can trade Ha-Seong Kim. And if he starts hitting, he might be a critical player for you down the stretch for a team that is currently very much in a playoff race and, holding a wild card spot right now.
We talked about it a lot during the offseason. Are they going to trade Ha-Seong Kim? Are they going to trade Ha-Seong Kim? You can't trade Ha-Seong Kim. Well, his value was at its absolute peak in the offseason, and his value has gone down, I think, a little bit, trade value.
A lot bit, actually.
Yeah.
A lot bit.
He's still going to get a nice payday. Somebody will sign him when he's a free agent.
He is he's a valuable player. Defensively, certainly. I don't think you can guarantee, though, offensive production from Ha-Seong Kim. He's been, even in his better seasons, been a little hot and cold, hit or miss, get tired out at the end of the season, even last year. Did not have a good September. Obviously his first year struggled to adjust to pitching, and now he's kind of slumping again. So you cannot guarantee that he'll ever be that player that was kind of in the MVP, at least top 10 voting conversation last year for much of the season. I don't know that that's the real Ha-Seong Kim. I'm not expecting, $200 million anywhere out there for Ha-Seong Kim. I don't know. Do you think he gets 9 figures? Does he get over $100 million? I would have before the season. Now I'm not so sure.
I was thinking, he's going somewhere for 150 million.
I mean, Jung Ho Lee got over 100 million, not having played a day of Major League Baseball. You know, Ha-Sung Kim's got value there, which makes me think, well, of course he's going to get a 9-figure contract in the offseason. But then again, I don't know that I'd be the one that wanted to pay him 9 figures.
Yeah, I mean, you have so many infielders that it just. We talked about it in the offseason. If you sign Kim to, let's call it a 6-year extension, then you're really locked in. Your entire infield is just locked down for the duration of that contract and Jake's contract at least.
You have to have some flexibility, whether it's A.J. Preller or someone else who's the general manager going forward. You can't just handcuff them to 7 of the 9 players in the field and go, all right, here's your team. Go ahead and, you can't trade. No, they all have no trade clauses. No, they're all signed for 8 years. What's the point of even having a general manager at that point? Just to make, 1 or 2 bullpen moves every year? I mean, you're not even giving anyone a shot if you just sign everybody to long-term contracts.
And we have a rise for this season and next year?
Correct. He's also someone that will be at least talked about on the trade market in the offseason.
Yeah, in the offseason. I don't
think he's going anywhere this year, but they'll talk about a contract extension. They will also talk about a trade because both of those things make some sense.
But if you're talking about infielders on the Padres roster currently who will be a free agent soon, which one do you want to sign? I'm going with Luis Arraez right now. And ended the 7 o'clock hour talking about how the month of June can be critical for the 2024 Padres season because they've gotten through a pretty tough part of their schedule. They're 1 game above 500. They are playing the likes of the Royals, the Angels, the A's, the Mets. There are some very winnable games coming up in June. And if the Padres go one way, I could see them trading a Kim to acquire somebody that they think is going to push them over the edge. I can see them also keeping Kim because they're in the hunt. They want to keep everybody. And if they go the other direction and drop a bunch of those series that they should win in June and things kind of start to spiral, then it's anybody's guess. And Kim may not be the only one that gets traded.
Yeah, it's funny. You see winnable games. Other people see losable games. They're games you should win, but they are losable.
I mean, every game's losable.
Well, and every game's winnable as well. So, I'd look at the weekend series against the Yankees and go, yeah, those are winnable games. Probably not going to win them, but they're winnable games.
At least they have the Royals and the Angels on the road. The Mets on the road. You got to win those games.
Now, Royals are a good team. I mean, let's not sell the Royals short. It's not like the Padres are heading to the old Royals last place type club. That's a playoff-looking squad right now that you go into Kansas City this coming weekend. So that road trip starts with a tough one.
Series.
Yeah, that'll be
the A's at home.
You don't want to let the Diamondbacks get going. They still have never totally locked in after their World Series appearance last year. The Giants, we talked about it earlier, they've kind of gotten going. Will they be able to sustain it? They still have Robbie Ray potentially later in the season joining their starting rotation. You can't imagine Blake Snell is going to pitch as poorly as he has the first 5 starts. He'll have a good run in him at some point this year. That seems almost inevitable.
August.
So, Giants are definitely dangerous. You hope that the Mets are no, it's not our year. We're still in full rebuild mode, and you can take advantage of a team like that. But there's still plenty of teams that are definitely not out of it, especially in the National League playoff chase. I mean, even the Pirates and the Nationals and the Cardinals, who started out so poorly, they climbed back to close to 500. They're only 2 games above 500, only game and a half behind the Padres and for a playoff spot. So there are tons of teams that still feel like they're very much in contention at this point in the season. The only ones that really aren't are the Colorado Rockies, who you have struggled against, and the Miami Marlins, who are currently at Petco Park right now, and you were able to win the first game of that series yesterday. We'll see how they do tonight in Game 2 of the series. Did go over the weekend. Not that anyone's going to care at all. But I went to check out, because of course I did, the NCAA Golf Championships that are going on right now at La Costa. I guess, part of my dream, of course, I played college golf on a Division III level. And I'll have to say, it struck me when I was there. I assume that they probably did have some sort of NCAA Division III championship as well when I played. It was so far out of the realm of possibility that our team could even make it. I can honestly say that in 4 years, the thought never even crossed my mind of our team advancing to like the NCAA championships. That's how bad my college golf team was. That, like, I mean, you don't even start the year with a dream. Well, everything goes right, and everyone plays up to their capabilities, and we win the league, and we get an invitation to national. Not once in 4 years did that thought even like across my mind that it exists. But these kids, they hit the ball so far. I mean, I walked around the course just to see some of them. And they had these tees back like 520-yard par fours into the wind. They're hitting like 350 out there. I can't even see where the ball is landing. They're hitting the ball so far, which was kind of cool that we're having a major NCAA event right now in our backyard up in North County at La Costa, where they redid the whole course. It looks fantastic, really spectacular. So,
Totally.
Yeah, I know. No one cares about my golf exploits over the weekend, but I want to take a timeout. When we come back, we talked about it earlier, but we need to do the official Ben and Woods shout out to his family. And I want to share the one Bill Walton story that I learned yesterday that I thought was the absolute best thing I saw yesterday about Bill. And we'll do that when we come back after a check of traffic with Ben and Woods on 97.3 The Fan. Probably should have played some Grateful Dead, actually, coming into this segment, but that's okay. Welcome back. It is Ben and Paul today. Just got a text from Woods, says he's feeling a little bit better, so that's a good sign this morning, and hopefully he is back sooner rather than later. But even Woodsy had some interactions with Bill Walton over the last, 10-plus years since he arrived in San Diego. I remember distinctly we were emceeing the big Padres dinner at Petco Park a few years ago out on the field, and Bill was one of the guests in attendance, but he wasn't scheduled to be one of the speakers, and they wanted to make sure they ran a tight ship. So we were given specific instructions. Do not, under any circumstances,
whatever you do,
Bill Walton take the microphone, because if you do, we will be here all night. Do not let that man start talking, because you can never get him to stop. And it's a loving remembrance of Bill Walton, who of course passed away yesterday at the age of 71. And I saw a lot of people talking about Bill, obviously, yesterday, especially people who knew him well. And clearly, we'll talk to Jim Brogan in our 9 o'clock hour. He was a teammate of Bill's on the San Diego Clippers in the early 1980s. But more recently, when Bill just turned into the full hippie, dippy Bill Walton, especially on ESPN's Pac-12 broadcast, his broadcast partner for most of those games was Dave Pasch. So Dave Pasch was someone who spoke a lot yesterday on ESPN about Bill Walton. He was on early in the day. He was on with Scott Van Pelt later at night. And what really struck me is, and this felt very odd, that in many ways, Bill Walton was very much like Woods is for me. Because with Dave Pasch, Dave said, I went to Syracuse. I was like a professionally trained play-by-play broadcaster, like old school. You do everything a certain way, and it's buttoned up and it's proper. And I took it very seriously. And
Not
I was
with Bill there.
I was a little bit of a kind of a starched shirt, and it was hard for me to let loose. But then I started working with Bill Walton, and he kind of opened up this new personality that I didn't know that I had, and allowed me to be playful during these games and not take everything so seriously. And I thought, that sounds kind of familiar.
It's a really, really good connection that I did not put together.
And I thought, I am Dave Pasch, and Woods is kind of Bill Walton when it comes to sports talk. Woods doesn't do sports talk the way everybody else has done sports talk. He does it more like Bill Walton called basketball games.
Woods would have flunked sports talk radio
At
school.
Syracuse, he never would have gotten through sports talk radio school. He does it his own way, just like Bill did games his own way. And somehow Bill was able to be kooky and crazy, yet he knew his basketball, and he had great points. And just like Woods does, he knows his baseball, he knows his stuff, he even knows basketball, even though he'll never totally admit it. He can watch it and make some good points. He knows his football, but he does it his own way, and he makes me better as well, just like Bill has made Dave better and more entertaining as a broadcaster. And I thought, I would have never put that connection together. Bill Walton and Stephen Woods right there. But I thought that was very interesting. But the story that stuck with me the most yesterday about the kind of person that Bill Walton was, and he really was a good person. I know everyone, after they pass away, we all say what good people they were. And it's often true. I mean, I think most people are mostly good at heart. But Bill truly was someone who cared and loved people. And just about everybody. It didn't really matter who you are. And this story was about Mike Breen, the basketball broadcaster, national basketball broadcaster. Bang! Breen. So he worked with Bill just a couple of years in the NBA on NBC long ago. And in recent years, Mike Breen was quoted as saying, "I'll fight anybody to the death who says anything bad about Bill Walton." And here's the reason why. He says, "I've told this story maybe 20 times, and 18 of them wind up crying." He says, "My dad, John Breen, had started exhibiting signs of Parkinson's in the late 20-aughts, and by 2008, started to withdraw, not wanting to ask for help or be seen as weak." And I think that's very common with people who are experiencing severe, debilitating illnesses. And Mike Breen says, my brother called me and said, did you know the USS Midway is stationed in San Diego? So their dad had served on the Midway, but hadn't seen it since his discharge in 1955. So they decided to go see it, which, of course, now the USS Midway Museum here in San Diego. And while the father could still travel. So Breen called Bill Walton, who, of course, lives here, to get some hotel recommendations. And Breen says, Bill says, oh, that's great, but you're not staying at a hotel. You're staying at my house, Breen says, making his voice sound oafy and generous like a cartoon bear. I said, Bill, that's so nice of you. I think my dad would be a little embarrassed. And like, Dad's there, and he goes, no, that's great. So the Breens end up going and staying with the Waltons for the entire 3 days. They had planned to buy tickets to the USS Midway, but when they got here, Walton had already called ahead, informed the museum, and said they'd be bringing along one of the heroes that served on the ship. So the Midway commander greeted them personally. And then Bill came with them on the tour, Breen says, and walked every step of the way. The knees, the back, a 7-footer does not belong anywhere near an aircraft carrier, but he didn't miss a second of it. They stayed for 3 days, and for 3 days, Breen says, he did not leave my father's side. And when we left, Bill wasn't my friend. Bill was his friend. And it was really like 3 of the best days in his life in those last couple of years. And he did pass away, but that story remains important to Breen, and his mom still lives in the same house. They get a big picture of Bill Walton and Mike Breen and his dad visiting the USS Midway still in their house and in the teepee in Bill Walton's backyard, which is still, yes, he does actually still have a teepee there in his backyard in his house by Balboa Park. But that was the story to me that stuck with me the most, that Bill Walton, he just kind of cared about everybody and wanted to touch some lives and see what he could do in his own kind of weird way to make everybody a little bit happier. So, as we do, Paulie, if you would fire it up in Ben and Wood's tradition.
And I really hope we can see more unity and more peace when already things are so difficult. So, shout out to his family.
That one definitely hurts a little bit more than the usual one. Just as I said earlier, you could say, call it the Mount Rushmore of San Diego athletes, but you can't start any conversation about the greats that have come out of San Diego without talking about Bill Walton, who and this is something I didn't know yesterday either. When Bill was like 12, 13, wasn't tall at all. He played guard. He was actually, they showed a picture like of his freshman, I think, team or JV team at Helix. He was one of the shorter guys. I go, that's not Bill Walton. Everybody, all those other kids are taller than him. How could that be Bill Walton? He grew 6 inches between his sophomore and junior years, and eventually, filled into that 6', 11-inch frame that ended up being the signature of Bill Walton. And while he's remembered for many things as a basketball player, his signature game is probably the 1973 championship against Memphis State in the NCAA tournament. 21 of 22 from the field, 44 points in that game for Bill Walton as they won a second straight title at UCLA. And I was watching some of the highlights as well. You see it today in a couple of the big men like Jokic, but Bill Walton was such a great passer. He was doing like Jokic-style passes, like not looking, like feeding it out to the cutters, well before what you would think is like his time in modern basketball. He'd fit in very well today with some of the big men. He didn't dribble the ball the way, some of the big guys do, like Doncic and Jokic now can, like a point guard, but otherwise he would go down the court, and as he's running down, he would call the plays with the point guard like trailing behind them. But Bill was the one who actually understood the game, saw what was happening. Obviously, he learned it, from John Wooden at UCLA, who he idolized. And I mean, yeah, I did not realize that he was kind of a short kid and was not a sports family. His dad was a music teacher, and his mom was a librarian. They knew nothing about sports at all, but they ended up with this giant kid who wanted to play some basketball. He had a stutter until he was almost 30 years old, and of course overcame it and became not just a broadcaster, but a guy who never stopped talking at all. Maybe it's because he didn't talk for his first 30 years, but the last 40 years he wanted to make up for time and just constantly talk the entire time. But
Don and Tony talked about it a little bit in the broadcast yesterday, how he was such a San Diego icon that not in the sense that we all knew who he was, but like we all felt like, and for a lot of people listening, you've probably met Bill Walton or you saw him riding his bike, you ran into him or something. Like you had that accessibility to him because he was always just out and about in the community. He loved San Diego.
And it was always easy to spot him as well. He didn't hide.
Yeah.
Dave Pash, he didn't wear hats or anything like
Who's that?
Not that you could,
guy
not
in
you
a
could really
tie-dye
hide,
t-shirt.
but red hair, tie-dye T-shirt, 6'11". There's really no way he could get around it. He knew he was going to be approached, so he'd stay after games for like an hour and he'd sign autographs and just be himself.
Dave Pash, who you mentioned earlier, was the one that called those Pac-12 games. Pac-12 RIP, by the way.
Yeah,
it's had their last sporting event.
Bill Walton did not want to live in a world that did not have the Pac-12 in it, apparently.
But Dave Pash has been posting on social media a ton of memories and tributes to Bill Walton all morning long. And the one that got me was he posted 4 screenshots of text messages, and he said, Bill would text me during games that I was broadcasting and pretend he didn't know I was doing it, but would ask if I was watching. And there's a text from Bill Walton that says, I hope you're watching the Knicks-Cavs game. Superb. Check it out. There's still time. Hopefully the announcer will set the scene for you. Enjoy. BW. There was another one. Are you watching this masterpiece, UCLA, UW on ESPN? No idea who's calling the game, but the guy's stealing your lines. Those guys just look like they had so much fun. And I feel for Dave Pash and anybody that knew Bill Walton.
Maybe I'll try that with our next guest tonight. Jesse, you should be, are you watching this Padres game? It's amazing. It's fantastic. Are you checking this out? Padres Marlins. You got to get to the radio right now. It's terrific. That is our next guest. Jesse Agler is going to join us. We got an incorporator coming up as well. Talk some Padres baseball with the voice of the Padres. When we return, Ben and Paul. Rest in peace, Bill Walton, on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Paul, you're a fairly tall guy as well, like me. What, 6'3"?
Yep, 6'3".
Did you remember growing pains, like when you were younger? Like
Yes.
Yes, I do too. And people are pointing out in the chat, because I mentioned that they said that Bill Walton grew 6 inches, like the summer between his sophomore and junior years of high school. My God, how painful that must have been to be growing at that rate, that fast, like every single day. Your body must have felt like it was just like aching from the inside out to grow that much.
Yeah, I grew quickly, but not like 6 inches in a year.
No one grows like that.
I grew quickly where like my joints just like stretched out. Like I used to catch in Little League all the time, like full games. I loved catching. And then I just hit a point where I grew and my knees they just got so weak. And the doctor said, yeah, you grew a little too fast and like joints, the tendons in your knee just kind of stretched out, and that's why you have weak knees. I'm like, okay, no more catching for me. But I can't even imagine 6 inches in a year.
I want to ask our next guest how he would have handled calling a game with Bill Walton. First, this hour on 97.3 The Fan is brought to you by Express Employment Professionals. If you're ready for a new job, let Express Employment Professionals help you. Express is your one connection for a summer job in a variety of industries. Job seekers never pay a fee at Express. Go to expresspros.com to find your location. That's expresspros.com. Jesse Agler standing by right after a check of traffic here on 97.3 The Fan.
From the 97.3 The Fan Traffic Center, here's Kelly Danick.
Traffic is sponsored by Valvoline Instant Drive-Thru Oil Change, your trusted instant drive-thru oil change. Couple problems in the North County. Northbound 5 coastline just past the 78 reports of some large tire tread in the right lane. Also, Old Highway 395 right at the southbound 15 connector ramp. There is a collision involving a couple vehicles. That's over the right shoulder. Stop by any of the 30 San Diego Valvoline Instant Oil Change Centers. You don't have to get out of your car, and it usually only takes 15 minutes or less. Plus, get a free courtesy check of your tires and battery. Visit SoCalOilChange.com for directions and discounts. SoCalOilChange.com. And Kelly Danick with Ben & Woods, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Now, I know Jesse Agler has done some other sports, basketball, football, broadcasting in the past. I was assuming that he never did a game with Bill Walton, but I guess I don't know that for sure. Good morning, Jesse. You never called a game with Bill, did you?
No, I didn't, but it would have been a heck of an experience. But I'm really close with a couple of guys who worked with him a lot. Roxy Bernstein in particular, Pac-12. They've done a ton of games together over the years. Roxy and I go back, almost 20 years now. And Jason Benetti has become a very good friend in the industry also, and he's famously worked with Bill on multiple occasions. So I've talked to both of them about it in the past, and I think if I had ever had the honor, it would have been a wonderful lesson in like letting go of control, because you're not going to have any. As a play-by-play guy, right? Like you sort of consider yourself a point guard for broadcast, and you're trying to get from A to B, and you have certain information or stats or stories that you want to pass along. You obviously want to explain and describe what's happening in the game. And I think if you're working with Bill, you just sort of have to let go of all of that and just kind of get on for the ride. And, it's something of like a psychedelic roller coaster. What a beautiful, beautiful human being. Like you guys, I was honored to meet him a couple of times around town at Petco and at different, community events. And, I think I said on the radio yesterday, like every human is by definition unique. But I think Bill, maybe unique with a capital U. What an incredible person.
But you have worked with Mud Grant, which has got to be somewhat similar.
Yeah, no, they're the Venn diagram definitely exists.
All right.
I heard you guys a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Real quick with Bill, there was a really, really good special, and I can't remember what outlet it was on. It might have been locally produced. It might have been nationally. I don't remember. Kind of like him going back to his childhood home here. And reminiscing, and this was fairly recently about his life.
Luckiest guy in the world, 30 for 30. Yeah. That was great. Yeah,
it was a 30 for 30. Okay, yeah, it was outstanding, and it was a really good reminder that this is a person who has had some very, very serious challenges in their life, and there's probably not been a lot of days in the last 50 years in which he was physically comfortable, to say anything of feeling great. And when you contrast that with his outlook on life and his personality and what he gave out to the world, there's a really good lesson in there for all of us. You wake up with a stiff neck and it can ruin your whole day, right? And then you think about Bill Walton and what he dealt with and how he was outward to the rest of humanity. I think, we'd all be a little bit better off if we remembered that a bit more frequently.
Well said, Jesse. Jesse Agler, voice of the Padres, is with us. And here we are, 1/3 of the way through the Major League Baseball season. And Memorial Day is a day even people inside baseball kind of circle as a spot to take stock in the team. And we were talking about it earlier where the Padres stand now, a game above 500 against a pretty tough schedule. Give us your just kind of overall thoughts on the first third of the schedule here, Jesse.
I think it feels to me a little bit like treading water in, fairly choppy seas. And I think when you step back and consider what they haven't gotten out of their biggest superstar types, that's okay. I think they're right in the thick of it, playoff-wise. They're not out of anything by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, they're very much in it. And they have not gotten what they have expected to get out of, particularly Manny and Fernando. And so credit to Profar and Cronenworth and Merrill and everybody else who has contributed, obviously the pitching staff as well, to kind of keep them in the position, that they're in. My thought and hope would be, at some point, of course, Manny and Fernando are going to get going in the way that we would expect. And that's when you hope, that they're able to rip off 8 out of 10. Or 10 out of 13 in the win column, something like that. Now, all of a sudden, instead of sort of bobbing up and down, 2 games under 500, 2 games over 500, maybe you're bobbing more in the 9 games over, 7 games over type of waters. And so I think, has it been a best case scenario? Obviously not, when you look at those numbers and you look at the standings. But I do think all things considered, they're in a pretty good spot. As you said, Memorial Day is one of those markers on the calendar. It's, about a third of the way through. There is an awful lot of baseball left to be played. They're in the thick of it, and I expect them to continue to be in the thick of it at worst, the rest of the way.
The 2024 San Diego Padres, they haven't drowned. That's our slogan going forward. Jesse, one of the things I love about baseball are the unexpected stories, the ones even people inside the organization didn't see coming. And I think Jeremiah Estrada has been one of those guys. Spring training, I don't really remember him much. I know that they saw some things that they liked in him from the Chicago Cubs, but even if A.J. Preller is being honest, I can't imagine anyone expected to see what they've gotten out of Jeremiah Estrada. Just kind of thoughts and what you've learned about Jeremiah Estrada over these past few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the great stories of the season so far. And the neat thing is, in this age of analytics, it's real. Like, you can say, now I'm not suggesting he's going to literally strike out every guy forever as he's been doing, but like, the metrics on his fastball in particular, this is a very real pitch. And so, it's not a smoke and mirrors situation, as is sometimes the case, right? We've all seen the random reliever come up out of nowhere and have a really good few weeks. And then, as time goes on, it goes away. I would not expect that to be the case with Jeremiah Estrada based on what he's able to do. We saw him a lot, in spring training. And it was like, all right, I can see why they like him, but it's also spring training and it's a little wonky. And, what can I see from my perch in Peoria other than he throws really hard? I knew he had some walk issues, in the Cubs organization. So you were sort of always cognizant of that and kind of waiting to see if that was going to pop up. And, all right, he goes down to AAA after the first couple of days of the season. And quite frankly, you don't think too much of him. My main memories of him from spring training where he throws hard and he was kind of like a funny guy. Like he had a great personality. And you always appreciate when that's the case. And then, since coming back up, I'll continue to circle the game at Wrigley in which he came in. And it was sort of like the first time we saw him in a higher leverage situation. And it didn't go perfectly for him. He had, a couple of guys on base. He didn't finish the inning. But he didn't implode. It wasn't like a disaster or anything like that. And I remember Tony and I kind of looking at each other like, okay, they're going to give him a little bit of an opportunity here. And then Mike Schilt made a comment the next day when he was asked about it, sort of like, hey, he's a former Cub. He came up through their system. You put him out in kind of a high leverage moment there. You're never quite sure how somebody's going to respond in that situation. And Mike kind of smirked a little bit and he was like, yeah, it's kind of fun to see how they respond to something like that. And obviously the Padres liked something they saw that night in Chicago because pretty much the next time he came out was a very high leverage situation and he shut it down. And it's so neat to me to sort of see that evolution take place. And it's something, to use one of Mike Schilt's words, that they are very, very intentional about. This is a coaching staff and a front office. When it comes to stuff like this, they are not throwing it against the wall and seeing what sticks. They have very specific ideas about how they want to do things. And if you're paying super close attention, which of course is my job, not anybody else's, but like if you're paying super close attention, you can kind of sometimes see these things coming. And I find that just wonderfully fascinating. And obviously when it works out, fulfilling as well. But it's been a great story. The fact that there's like a fairly local tie-in, he's from Palm Desert, and to be able to see him having this kind of success is wonderful. And it's such a great reminder too for all of us that, the bullpen thing is just like inexplicable year to year. You just never know, at the start of a season what your bullpen is going to end up looking like. And obviously there will continue to be changes amongst the relievers as time goes on, but he's been wonderful as of late. Obviously struck out the last 10.
Jesse, a lot made of the return of Juan Soto over the weekend, and he hits the home run. Aaron Judge, red hot as well. Padres did get that last one, and the reaction to Juan Soto's return, and for me, I think it's kind of a case of envy, pure and simple. Padres fans want what the Yankees have right now, a team that's in first place and dominating with huge stars that they never totally got to enjoy with Juan Soto. And it wasn't Juan Soto's fault, but he was kind of the easy target for it. And so I understood that feeling when he came back, that it wasn't necessarily the most pleasant feeling for Padres fans. What were your thoughts on Juan Soto's return?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. There's probably also a little bit of, as Juan himself said, he did not perform up to his level as a Padre. Now, last year, when all was said and done, you look back at the numbers, he was their best offensive player, and he put up some pretty serious numbers a year ago. But they weren't necessarily the Juan Soto numbers that you dreamed of when that trade was made. And I think he was aware of that. Juan's a smart guy. He knows baseball very, very well. He understands expectations. He understands fans, and he understands, sort of, I think, the realities that go along with all of that. So he was asked before the first game, what he was expecting, and he went out of his way to bring that up, that, hey, I wasn't at my best over the long haul as a Padre. Now, obviously, look, he provided some incredible moments. He's a generational talent, and I think we were all sort of, better off and fortunate to be able to watch him up close and in person for a year and a half. But the reality was when that trade was made, I think Padre fans and the Padre organization thought they were getting, peak Juan Soto. And they were also, thinking, hey, we're going to have a couple of really deep playoff runs with this guy. Obviously went to the NLCS in 22, but last year the team did not make the postseason. And he, rightly or wrongly is a little bit the face of that. And as you said, he's the guy that's no longer here. They're still pulling for Manny and Fernando and everybody else who was around for that, failure last year because they're still on the team. This guy is not. So it's totally understandable that, he would sort of wear the brunt of that because they don't want to boo the guys that are still here. But you do have some frustration maybe about the way 2023 went. And again, I think Juan totally understands that. I think there are in today's game very few guys who are bothered by booing or don't understand booing, unless it's sort of a totally weird, random thing. And, we've seen Manny get booed pretty vociferously the last few years, in LA, Milwaukee, which goes back to Jesus Aguilar and 2018 postseason. And Manny gets it. I can't imagine it's like the most fun thing in the world, but I don't think he really lets it get to him on any sort of human level because these guys are professional athletes and they know that that's part of the deal. And I certainly know Soto thinks that as well.
New attendance record for a 3-game series over the weekend. Should be another big crowd tonight with a belt bag giveaway against the Marlins. And, of course, it's Tuesday, which means it is time for the Incorporator. And Paulie's got your word fired up. It comes from Tier 1 Courtney. And I think this is going to be the easiest one you've had all season. You just have to
Thank you, Courtney.
Find a way to work it in. Here it is, Jesse.
Crepuscular.
Crepuscular. It is having to do or relating to twilight. Crepuscular.
Perfect on a night game.
Like a crepuscular animal is active, during the twilight hours of the day. But for a night game, at home, shadow, who knows? Yeah. I mean, come on. As simple as it gets, you just have to find a way to say crepuscular sometime during the broadcast tonight. Are you with Bob again tonight, or is Mud back? Or is
I'm with Bob the rest of the series, and then
series.
Tony and I back together over the weekend in Kansas City, I guess.
How about Tony hitting the home run in Cooperstown over the weekend? That was cool.
I told him yesterday, allegedly. We've all only seen the video of him rounding.
That's a good
base,
point. That's a good point. I mean, it could be a giant con that everyone is just trying to make us think he hit a home run and just stage the entire thing.
I'm gonna have Dave Marcus take a video of me, crossing home plate at Petco, and I'm gonna say I hit it over the batter's eye to center field.
Yeah, can't prove it. You didn't.
That's true. That's a good point.
Pretty cool though. No, that was awesome. That was awesome. I'm thrilled for him.
All right, Jesse. Maybe we'll see you out at the ballpark tonight. I'm coming with my family, celebrating my son's 21st birthday. I got the big group coming out for the game tonight. So hopefully we'll get a win. I know the night home record hasn't exactly been fantastic for the Padres this season, and that is a understatement to say the least.
That's one of the weird ones. Come by, say hi, happy birthday to your son, and enjoy your conversation with Skip.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Take care. Jesse Agler teasing our next guest for us as well, which is doing my job for me. He said, say hi to Skip. That's because Skip Schumaker, manager of the Miami Marlins, back in town for the weekend or the week here, is going to join us. Sans Woodsy, he's got to be dying that he's missing this conversation. Not that we can't have Skip on at other times. He's always kind and gives us time. It's just when they're playing the Padres, it's just a relevant conversation this week. So
I'm sure Woods will text Skip his thoughts and
that's
his
good
comments.
He already probably has. He's probably been texting him all weekend.
Probably texting him
yesterday.
right now.
Might be texting him during our interview as well. He can evaluate our performance, Paulie, coming up next. Ben and Woods on 97.3 The Fan. We'll be right back. I don't think I've ever felt like a bigger disappointment than these last few days when, like, everybody has come up to me and go, oh, missed the round table on Thursday. Why didn't you guys have a round table? I go, there was a game. Wouldn't you rather listen to a game than a round table? No. I want the round table. Fine. It's coming back this Thursday, 10 a.m., 97.3 The Fans, commercial-free Padres Roundtable featuring Ben Woods, Andy and Elston, and Gwen and Chris, presented by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. For takeout or delivery, go to roundtablepizza.com. Roundtable, the last honest pizza, and apparently the hour of radio that none of you can live without every single week. So we will have one for you coming up in a couple of days here and discuss this current Padres homestand, which started with 1 of 3 against the Yankees and a win over the Miami Marlins last night. And joining us right now, good friend of the program, the manager of the Miami Marlins, Skip Schumaker, is with us here. And I feel like you're going to like your favorite restaurant, but then like they're out of your favorite food because Woods isn't here, Skip.
Hey, I still really love you guys.
Thank
too.
you.
I mean, what the heck? You
Thank
get
you.
COVID the one day I get on this show, huh? That's how it works.
I forced you to say that. I know I set you up for that,
Here,
but I
I can
appreciate
fill
it.
in. Hey, Skip, it's Woodsy. You're so handsome. Anyways, you're so handsome.
My wife loves you so much. This is incredible. How many push-ups did you do yesterday? It's amazing. Actually, what is pretty amazing is your Miami Marlins have played some good baseball of late, like better than the Dodgers. Obviously, that first month was, horrifically bad. Skip, how do you get things turned around when things are as bad as they were? 6-24 at the end of April there? Ooh.
Yeah, it was tough. There's no doubt about it. I think the main thing is, as you know, the manager of a team, is you can't let them see you sweat, right? Like you have to come in with the same attitude, same processes that you would be doing if you were winning or losing. Obviously, you're always trying to get guys better, so certain individualized work days look a little bit different. But other than that, the last thing we can do is start pointing fingers or have our staff go sideways. And I'm really proud of how, that clubhouse leadership went about it and our staff. And we stuck together. And yeah, there was some tough times, no doubt about it. Some tough losses. We made a trade, the whole deal. But I think, the way they went about it shows, really who they are.
Let's talk about that trade. Luis Arraez, who's been everything the Padres have hoped for and then some. And I get the sense that you aren't the least bit surprised about that. Just give us kind of your thoughts on Arraez, the person that you saw him being the last season plus in Miami and what the Padres really do have here.
Well, I don't have a bad thing to say about the kid. I absolutely love him.
He loves you too.
Yeah, well, we had a really good relationship, and yeah, you're right. I'm not surprised at all. I don't think people really understood how good he is unless you see him day in and day out, right? Like you see some highlights, you see him for a 3-game set, you're like, oh yeah, he's a pretty good hitter, and then you play the next 3 games against another team. When you see him for 162, there is a enormous amount of respect for the work ethic, the person he is, the energy he brings in that dugout. He inspires other guys to work harder, and the bat-to-ball skill is there's nothing like it in the league. So I don't know if you want another guy up in a big spot because you're not going to get a strikeout. He's going to put the ball in play, and you know what kind of attitude he's going to bring in every day. So, yeah, he's a wonderful guy and a really good pickup for the Padres.
And I think you got some good players back, players that I know A.J. Preller was really excited about, like Jacob Marcy and Nathan Martorella, but not guys that are going to help your team right away. How tough is that, knowing it's probably smart and right for the organization as a whole for the future, but you've got guys on the team right now that know this move is not helping us in the short term?
Yeah, I think that's the tough part in my seat is trying to tell, players in that clubhouse that, this is probably better for, the future of the organization, with the start we had, stuff like this happens. Those guys, they don't care, right? They're trying to win at the major league level. And if you're not helping out at that level, they don't care about the minor leagues. They don't want the minor leagues to be more important than the big leagues. I mean, that's just the reality of a major league player. In our situation, and as, again, the manager, you have to understand where we're at the time, and you don't play GM, right? Like you do whatever you can with the roster you're handed. And, we still felt like we had enough pitching to keep us in every ball game. And, we needed some timely hitting, which we're getting right now. But yeah, at the time it was challenging, but any trade that happens, especially at the magnitude like this one in our clubhouse, there's a shock factor that happens and it stings for a little bit, but the game moves on. It never stops, and you have to flush it as quick as you can, as much as it stung, and move on because you have a job to do.
Talking to Skip Schumaker, manager of the Miami Marlins, Padres and Marlins tonight at 6:40 here on 97.3 The Fan. I want to talk about that pitching staff because you're right. You've gotten some really good performances lately. I'm excited to see Jesus Luzardo tonight, who's gonna be on the mound. What's he been doing for the team? What can fans expect to see tonight from Jesus?
Yeah, I was ready for him to take the next step in his career. He was our opening day starter. He throws 97 miles an hour with the elite slider, and his changeup has really developed. He was on the IL for about 2 weeks, had a little forearm tightness, bounced back extremely well. His last couple starts have been pretty much lights out and exactly what I expected out of Luzardo this year. Another really good kid. You guys, if he was, he's just a special person, a lot like Arias. And so I anticipate him being on the attack, and then we'll see it happen. But that's a really good lineup he's going to face, so he's got a challenge ahead of him.
But the pitcher that leads your team in WAR and has really been the guy in the rotation, and this might come as a surprise to Padres fans, we won't see him in this series, is Ryan Weathers, who was dealt late last season and, was always talked about as a top prospect at some point for the Padres. Never really happened here. What has clicked for Ryan Weathers so far this year?
My least favorite phrase is it's just who they are. And I think you can get caught in this game when you just give up on guys or not seeing guys and kind of move on. This guy was a really young, talented left-handed pitcher that was promoted really early. To his credit, he did all kinds of stuff this offseason, bought his own TrackMan, got his own pitching facility at his house, pretty much built a pitching lab, and figured out how to spin the ball better and how to manipulate the changeup better. He always had a fastball, and he came into spring training a different kid. Mel Stoudemire has done really well working with him and trying not to live just on the edges, but to go on the attack. And I'm really proud of how he's developed, and he's been open to change. And it's been. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what it was going to look like in spring training, but really proud of how he came in.
Well, you know me, Skip. I'll always try to ask at least one spicy question. And I know as a manager, you would never say anything about current umpires, but retired umpires are probably fair game. What was your reaction to the news yesterday about the immediate retirement of Angel Hernandez? Caught a lot of us off guard.
Well, I will say that Angel has always been a really nice guy.
That's what I've heard too.
And I think that's what's been. I think players will tell you that, managers will tell you that, and I really hope that is part of his story as well, because he did a lot of stuff off the field, charity-wise, that was really good in the communities, and especially in Florida. But a really, really nice guy. Having said that, I think it's.
Did he ever throw you out?
He struck me out quite a bit, and so we disagreed at times. There's no question about that, but I hope he has a really good retirement.
Oh, that's a very gentlemanly answer from the gentleman that is Skip Schumaker, no doubt about it. How's everything going otherwise? Family, good being back here in Southern California for a few days?
It is. It's great to be back home. My son won the Trinity League MVP.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Austin Hedges. Yeah, and Royce Lewis as a sophomore, so excited about that. My daughter's doing great. My wife is awesome as usual. So, yeah, very lucky to be sleeping in my own bed in my house. And, going down to Petco, obviously, is it's pretty cool to see, the fan base and the energy and everything. It's just so different than when I first started there. And AJ Preller and his group and Mike Shield, all of them have done a really good job to it's just really cool vibe down there right now.
And getting to listen to your favorite radio show on your drive down. I'm sorry we weren't on yesterday for you, taking Memorial Day off. What were we thinking?
I know you guys are slacking a little bit, but I'm excited I listened to you guys back in Miami. I think you guys know that too.
I
so
know, and we appreciate that. Say hi to all the guys that listen, Rod, and all the guys in the clubhouse as well. We really do appreciate it, man. And after tomorrow, best of luck going forward again to the Marlins.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Skip Schumaker, manager of the Miami Marlins, and there's a reason why he's one of our favorites. Obviously, we got to know Skip when he was coaching here with the San Diego Padres, and now, he won the Manager of the Year award last year. Honestly, what he's kind of done this last month, I mean, put him in the conversation again.
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
He's got it.
If they stay in contention, I think you have to.
They're not really in contention, but they were 6-24, and they've had a winning record since then.
Yeah.
They're not a very good team. I mean, they took apart the GM took apart that team, didn't really give them anything other than, signing an aging Tim Anderson, who has cost them now more games than I think he's winning for them at this point. And Skip is somehow keeping it from completely collapsing. They trade their, most exciting favorite player in Luis Ariz for nothing, as we said, immediately, nothing that's going to help them right now. They're a team that's just screaming 112 losses. And yet maybe they can, keep it from at least going, that direction the rest of the year, hopefully. And, Padres, I doubt they're favored even tonight with Waldron against Luzardo. The way
they are.
It's going to be close, I would think, with the way Luzardo can dominate lefties against the Padres. I mean, they're a team that's won 8 of their last 12. They're not the team that you wanted to face right now. You would have loved to have faced them back in April when they could not win anything. But right now they're getting at least good pitching. The hitting's not quite there, but they're getting good pitching.
Padres are favored tonight.
They are favored. All right. What's Matt Waldron's strikeout totals at now? I know that's one that you've been watching very closely.
Yeah,
every single time.
It's one of the weird ones.
The rest
today,
of baseball hasn't totally caught on to the fact that his ERA may not be great, but he's going to strike some guys out during the game.
Yeah, I've been able to make some pretty easy money on that this season, but tonight is one that I would stay away from. The line is 4.5, which I think he can absolutely punch out
but
5. But the
minus,
payouts, it's minus 160.
Oh yeah,
there's no juice.
Pretty
there.
low. Yeah, so I can see that. The juice isn't worth the squeeze tonight, but they always like to see him pitch deeper into games with that knuckleball. You can expect him to go 5 or 6, and when the
outings have been good.
When the knuckleball is good, they're probably going to swing and miss at it because it's just a really, really hard pitch to hit. I'd imagine Kyle Higashioka will be back behind the plate tonight, as he has now consistently for Matt Waldron starts, and it's another lefty lineup, so otherwise it would probably be similar to the lineup from yesterday with Donovan Solano at least getting a home run. He should probably get a couple of starts in a row here from the right side of the plate. So maybe he's been solid since they brought him up. He's been even better than David Peralta, I would say. Doesn't have maybe the pedigree, but he's been very solid for the Padres. So if you're going to get going against right-hander or left-handers, you expect it to be Machado or Tatis. Maybe it's Solano is the guy that gets their offense going a little bit. Going to be tough against Luzardo tonight in Game 2 of the series. All right, we'll take a timeout. What are we going to do in this next segment, Paulie?
Oh, my God. Woods
that's right.
Actually sent us this.
See, he's contributing even though he's not here today.
And all the video says is Brewers fan dropped a Craig Counsell diss track.
I think you'll be surprised to the tune that he chose to create his diss track toward Craig Counsell, the manager of the Cubs.
It's as bad as you think it might be.
Yeah, this could derail the Brewers season possibly, like the That's What's In guys did here in San Diego.
100%.
That's a first-place team, too, so they're playing with fire. We'll get to that coming up next after a check of traffic. More Ben and Woods on 97.3 The Fan. Our thanks again to Skip Schumaker, manager of the Miami Marlins. Always fun chatting with Skip in our last segment. Earlier, we talked about Juan Soto and his reception from Padres fans in his return to San Diego. More boos than cheers, and the cheers, I think, were mostly from the Yankees fans that were in attendance. But nothing, Paulie, compared to the reception, I think, that Craig Counsell got in his return to Milwaukee. Remember, Craig Counsell, one of the, if not the most successful manager that the Brewers have ever had by win percentage. He's taken a team with kind of mediocre talent and usually put them in the playoffs or the playoff conversation every single year. But of course, in this offseason, not signed by the Brewers, so he had a chance to explore free agency, and he got the biggest offer ever to be the manager of the Chicago Cubs. Yes, it was a division rival, but an opportunity that any sane person would say Craig Counsell has to go take. He's not going to get that kind of money from the Brewers, so he's got to go to Chicago. Well, yesterday comes around, and it was his first visit back to American Family Field in Milwaukee since he left. And as you can expect, people were not happy. Well, I went to their, biggest, closest rival, the Cubs, and they were upset. So you got the boos, you got the traitor, you got the chance at Craig Counsell, and the Brewers got the last laugh with a 5-1 win. Yeah, they were not happy. But what we didn't know that we got was a diss track from a Milwaukee Brewers fan who went to quite a bit of trouble to come up with the lyrics for this, and it surprised me the tune to which it was, because diss tracks you usually think, like Kendrick or something like that. Like, is it a rap?
Or like an original beat.
Or something original. But
this is like a parody.
But this, we present to you to the tune of Gautier. Here is upset Brewers fan on Craig Counsell.
Now and then I think of when you were our skipper. You said you knew us, but you haven't got a clue. Thought you were headed to NYC, but then you went and joined the enemy. And now you'll be completely useless by September.
C-U-B-S.
Clever.
Brewers baseball is part of who I am. It's part of who we are.
It never really hit me that you don't know how to manage. Until the D-back series when you pinch hit Winker twice. We never want to see you in Whitefish Bay. I hope the strong Chicago wind blows you away. And Brewers fans always boo your ass forever.
Can't wait for the chorus.
I was going to say, I don't know how much more I can handle.
Just save it, Craig, and please shut up. Told us it was a new challenge, but your word means nothing. Now you're even worse than far. We've listened to your reasons and we've heard enough. Why'd it have to be Chicago? If you brought us a World Series, we were going to go retire your number. We all know it's for the dough, and now you're just a Cubby that we used to know.
Okay, you know what? I don't think the Brewers deserve to be cursed over that. I mean, is he a good singer? No. Are those pretty clever lyrics? Yes. Yes, they are. And I think they're fairly accurate and on point. Paulie, I'm giving him a solid A, actually. Do you disagree?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well,
I mean, I hate that song. I hate parodies of that song now.
I think he chose a song that people kind of hate intentionally, though, just to add to the whole cringe factor of it. I think he was trying to be cringy.
I'll give him credit on the production. He had a full music video and everything. But
clips of Craig Counsell. I mean, he put a lot of work into that.
Yeah. I'm good if I never hear that again. Just being honest.
All right. Fair enough. Woodsy sent that to us, so that's his contribution for these 4 hours of the program. So hope you liked Woods' addition to the program today. Anybody ready for the NBA Finals out there? Not quite set, but almost.
I was a little bummed because I was looking at the schedule. We're looking at 2 sweeps in the conference finals.
And then like a big layoff.
And then there's going to be like a week and a half because I know it's just a TV thing. Like why wouldn't they just move finals games up? Like if both teams sweep, why not move the finals up a couple of days instead of wait a whole week?
I know they have.
They slot out the times.
Yeah, I know
it.
sometimes they do that, and it's possible, like venues in terms of, is there a concert scheduled in Dallas or something that they didn't expect, the finals to start that early? I got no idea on that. I was expecting the Pacers maybe to get it to the league, and they lost last night 105-102, but Indiana actually led 3 of the 4 games late and blew 3 of the 4 games. They could easily have a 3-1 lead in that series over the Boston Celtics, but like the last 3 possessions were just putrid. 2 turnovers and then a shot blocked. They looked like a team that didn't want to go back to Boston to get blown out in Game 5. Like, hey, if we're just going to lose, let's just have it happen now. We can go back to our own beds and not get on a plane after this game. So it wasn't a very impressive. Once they lost Tyrese Halliburton, though, that series was pretty much over.
People in the chat are making good points about like the Dallas Stars are still playing.
Yeah, I mean,
so.
they've got Stanley Cup Finals. Those are like alternating days. They could have both the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals in Dallas in the same arena, like on 4 straight days, depending on how the schedules work out.
But I'm pretty sure even if the Stars were eliminated and not playing right now, like they would typically just wait. ESPN and ABC would just wait until the originally scheduled times.
Yeah, I mean, things have gotten so intricate and complicated with the TV schedules and like what shows are like planned on coming on after, certain games and stuff, and when Game 7 is supposed to be, that I don't know how. I mean, it's probably much harder now to actually change those dates. I had not realized, just quickly on the Celtics. Do you know they're 76-20 now during the regular season and the playoffs? That's like historically good. They've been really fantastic, and I was not expecting that. They're a really good team, but I didn't think that they have potential. If they go on and win the title, they're going to go down with, like the Bulls, the Jordan Bulls, and those seasons of some of the best records ever. It doesn't feel like one of the all-time great teams, but they're right there, and likely going to take on the Mavs, who won Game 3 on Sunday night, 116-107 over the Timberwolves, and T-Wolves have also kind of given away some opportunities to win games in that series as well. Luka Doncic has had an amazing postseason, had 33 in Game 3. They can wrap that series up tonight in Game 4 in Dallas. So we'll have some more basketball talk coming up next. Jim Brogan's going to join us. So Jim, I've known for a long time. He was a San Diego Clippers teammate of Bill Walton back in the early 1980s. And there's a reason that one of the first people I thought of when Bill passed away was Jim Brogan. And I'll explain, and we'll talk to Jim about Bill's life and impact and on basketball and the sport when we come back. Final segment of Ben & Woods coming up next on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. As we talked about earlier, spent most of the day yesterday covering the passing of Bill Walton and sharing some of the stories that even I didn't know about with Bill Walton, even though I interviewed him many times. And I always use interview in air quotes because you don't interview Bill. You just put a microphone in front of him, and then he takes the conversation wherever he wants it to go. And I thought the first person I thought of when trying to think who could put some perspective on this is our next guest. Jim Brogan is going to join us after traffic here, but he was a teammate of Bill's on the San Diego Clippers back in the early 80s. And I'll explain what I think similarities they have coming up right after this check of traffic on 97.3 The Fan.
From the 97.3 The Fan Traffic Center, here's Kelly Danick.
Traffic is sponsored by the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. Just a couple problems here. One of them is a ladder in the two right lanes. Northbound 5 just past the 805 merge. Southbound side of the 15 past Auto Parkway reports of some gravel in middle lanes. Change the way you see the world at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, whether you're eye to eye with Sumatran tigers or soaring high above giraffes and rhinos. Every adventure helps support wildlife worldwide. Visit today and see conservation from a new perspective. I'm Kelly Danick with Ben & Woods, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
And we've got former San Diego Clipper Jim Brogan on the line right now. Jim, good morning. Welcome to Ben & Woods with Ben and Paul this morning. How are you?
Hey, great to hear from you guys, and thank you for having me on.
It's always good having you on. And obviously you and Bill had very different backgrounds. He was from sunny San Diego, West Coast, flower child. You grew up West Virginia, East Coast. But the two of you are two of the most positive basketball forces I have ever met in my life. Just kind of focused on the positivity in the sport. And I was wondering when you had a chance to be teammates with him, if that was a connection you made back then, and just some of those thoughts on Bill from those days with the Clippers.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and just to follow in his footsteps or do some of the things he's done would be remarkable. And playing with him was actually when I first came from the Golden State Warriors here to the Clippers, I was in awe. I mean, this is a guy that was heralded at UCLA, won all the championships there, a couple of championships there, won, I think, 82, 83 games in a row. And I mean, I knew who he was because he had won a championship with the Portland Trailblazers. So I'm thinking to myself, first meeting him, like, this is the guy. This is Bill Walton. And he was just as kind as he is today as he was back then, intense, intimidating, and he was a force. I mean, Ben, I tip my hat to John Wooden because he could have easily just used his talent, but his fundamentals and the way he played the game. And I just remember the battles he had against Moses Malone with the Sixers and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the Lakers. And Bill was toe-to-toe and better some nights, and it all just depended on, his feet because he had such problems as he got older into the league. He had such physical challenges, but he just followed through and played through the pain in practice and in games, and it was an honor to play with him. And then whenever we went, I remember going to Chicago, New York, and people would stop, and I'd have friends, come up to games and I'd say, hey, you got to meet, Bill. And he was as kind as could be. He'd take pictures. He would do whatever you asked him to do. And that's what San Diego is going to miss, along with his philanthropy and just who he was as a person and a father, a grandfather. And he just made such a difference. I mean, look at what he did for the challenged athletes here in San Diego. And who's ever going to fill those shoes? So it was a privilege to know him. It was a privilege to call him a friend, and it was fantastic to play with him.
It's certainly rare when basketball Hall of Famer is just kind of a part of the resume. I mean, it takes so much work to get to that level that rarely do guys have time for everything else that Bill had time for, and ended up as a great broadcaster. And as you said, just all the things he did for charity throughout San Diego and the support he gave to all the teams, not just basketball teams. I know Steve Fisher gave him a ton of props for helping build up the San Diego State program with all of his kind words over the years. But I wanted to focus a little bit on the basketball because he was a Hall of Famer. He was maybe the greatest high school, college player in history. But you mentioned those injuries, and even though he won an NBA MVP award, Finals MVP, led the Blazers to a title, won another one late in his career with the Celtics, How much better do you think he could have been had he not battled the kind of injuries that really cost him about half of the possible games he could have played in his career?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I remember the first time when he took his shoes off and his socks, and you could see his foot with all of the scars and the surgeries that he had. Remember, this is in the early 80s where, they would cut people open. Now with arthroscopic, surgeries, you really extend a player's career. But are we maybe talking Bill Russell type wins, Bill Russell type championships, if he had the ability to stay physically healthy? That's the question we'll never be able to answer. But just being around him for a couple of years, you could see the dominance when he played. I mean, he'd sweep the glass defensively. His outlet passes were amazing. But again, that's why people, the regular person out there, understand in NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, all these sports, pro hockey, soccer, it takes a toll. And you've got to be physically fit to play those 82 games into the playoffs, maybe even up to 95, 100 games. And unfortunately, that was his demise, is that his feet and the constant traveling, the practices, it just took a toll on him. But we missed out maybe on something that could have been another generation of like a Bill Russell with his type of results.
Talking to basketball instructor, mental coach, broadcaster, and former Clipper Jim Brogan about Bill Walton and the passing of the legend yesterday. And I know, and maybe you can speak to this time, but I know Bill has said in the past that one of his regrets, he felt like he was partly responsible for the Clippers not being able to stay in San Diego, that if he had stayed healthy and they had had more success, that they might have still been around. I don't think that that's true. I think Donald Sterling, like Dean Spanos, was going to L.A. no matter what when he got that opportunity. But was it really something that kind of ate at him from what you saw?
Well, because he is a San Diegan and he went to Helix High School, as you said, and he went to college just up the street, UCLA. He did not get along with Sterling at all. I mean, you could see it. There's times there was kind of a disdain in that.
That's a good sign,
relationship.
by the way.
Yeah, probably, definitely. Now we know.
Yeah.
But it's a shame because he's such a proud San Diegan and what he did for so many charities, and that tells you the type of person. He's making that statement that he felt responsible for the team leaving. That's who Bill Walton was. He was a leader, period. I mean, that's what you appreciate about him. He wanted to win championships. And, when he did get to the Boston Celtics after the Clippers, I think he got rejuvenated being around Larry Bird and Dennis Johnson and a couple other players there, which that helped him tremendously. But still, he couldn't go. He just the toll had been taken. The injuries had really solidified themselves, and so it limited him there too. But he was always bummed that there wasn't an NBA team in San Diego. We're this sixth, seventh largest city in the country, and with his name, reputation, and influence, it did. He didn't like the idea there wasn't a team here.
I thought one of the interesting stories I heard yesterday, you mentioned when he went to the Celtics later in his career, won a Sixth Man of the Year award on their way to the 1986 title. But before he joined the team, and by this point, well on his way to the Hall of Fame at the end of his career, he didn't go until he called Robert Parrish and asked him, "Are you okay if I show up and back you up? Big man, and I just come off the bench and spell you." He didn't want to be a disruptive force with the Celtics. And to the Celtics' credit, and to Robert Parrish's credit, he was like, absolutely, anything that can help us win, we'd love to have you on the team.
There it is, and that's something that I hope all of your audience appreciates. That's what a leader does. It makes that type of phone call to find out what's it going to take. Can I be a part of this? And you call the guy that's going to be playing in front of you. And it was about championships. I mean, I remember talking to Bobby Gross and Lionel Hollins when they won the championship up in Portland with the Trailblazers, and they ended up playing here for the Clippers. Bill was about championships. He was about team. And that just tells you right there with what he did, calling Robert Parrish, one of the great centers also. But you're talking with the Boston Celtics, and he does that, reaches out. That's leadership.
And Bill was also about conscience. And I have no idea if you saw or other people saw eye to eye with him, politically. Obviously, he was kind of a hippie and protesting the Vietnam War and stuff. But what he believed in strongly, and he had a strong conscience in his moral guide, and it really didn't surpass anything else. When he believed in something, he would put his career on the line for it. Like when he left the Portland Trailblazers, didn't want to go, but didn't feel like the team was having the best interest of the players in mind. And I mean, he was willing to sit out to make sure that his views were known.
Wouldn't it be great if he could teach a class in authenticity? Because he was very authentic. And I think that's one of the reasons people really enjoyed listening to him as a broadcaster, because he would say things that you go, oh my gosh, and then he would do things on the shows. But that's who he was. And so you accepted him for that, or you didn't. It was one or the other. But he was entertaining, he was honest, and he was authentic.
Last thing, Jim, the NBA today is very different than it was back in the 1980s and late 70s when Bill was starring. In fact, I heard that even the Game 7 of the NBA Finals, when he led the Trailblazers to the win over the Philadelphia 76ers, it was on live TV, but they made them play at 10 a.m. in Portland because they had to get to the Kemper Open golf tournament live after that. It's kind of a different scene today than it was back then. What are just some of your kind of memories of what that NBA was like with him back then?
Well, here's one thing I can see. I mean, when you played in the NBA and you tried to go down the middle of the lane and lay up or dunk the ball, there was a guy named Greg Lambier. There was a guy named Moses Malone. They'd never allowed you come down the middle of the lane. You're going to get hammered. Robert Parrish knocked me on the floor one time. I remember, I had to go out of the game. I probably had a concussion. I went back in, but today, those games in the 80s and early 90s were tough. I mean, look at the scores. The scores were in the 90s, 80s, because they didn't have this run and gun, and they didn't have the proliferation of the three-point line, which, Steph Curry, credit to him, he's changed the whole game. You now have guys that are shooting threes. I mean, look at Luka Doncic. He's 6'10", and he's taking three-pointers. So the physical side of the game has changed drastically. The athletic side has improved dramatically. I mean, the athleticism of today's players, and they're, getting shots up within the 24-second clock. They're getting shots up within 10, 12 seconds deliberately. That's how their offenses are played. But back then it was get it down the low post, let a guy like Bill Walton make a move or two, or someone's cutting to the basket. I can't begin to tell you how many passes he got to me, how he did it, going down the lane, and it was just wide open layup, wide open dunk. But he had, as we said, eyes in the back and eyes on the side of his head. That's the way the game was played, and it's very different, the 80s and 90s versus today.
As I expected, tremendous perspective and insight on the life of Bill Walton from Jim Brogan. Jim, really appreciate it. Thank you for giving us and our audience a few minutes this morning.
Ben, great talking to you. Sal, thank you so much for allowing me to share some of those stories and observations, and just a great friendship with a great man.
Jim Brogan, really terrific stuff, and a really remarkable life that Bill Walton led in every respect, and he will definitely be missed tremendously, but especially here in San Diego. I guess I didn't realize how the rest of the country would respond, Paulie, to the death of Bill Walton. I knew it would be a huge story here, but then when I saw World News and top story everywhere, that I was glad to see that. They said in Boston, we only had him for a short time, but what a huge impact he had when he was here. And people in Portland calling and saying he was my favorite, player and got me into basketball growing up, and just all different parts of the country that respected and loved Bill Walton, not just here in San Diego. So that was pretty good. All right, we got just a couple of minutes left. Finish with the Padres, as they really have a chance to do something and take care of some business that they have not been able to do all season long. And that is actually sweep a team. Now, I know they're still 2 wins away. Today, though, feels like the pivot game of this series. Obviously, you have to win them all to sweep, but this is the one with Waldron against Luzardo that you're feeling probably the most dicey about in the series. It's a night game.
It's be a good win.
It's against a lefty, home night game against lefties. It's the trifecta of Padres failures this year. Left-handed starting pitching, home game at night. That's all those three have added up to losses pretty much every single time the Padres have taken the field. They got another day game tomorrow. I got Yu Darvish. I expect him to bounce back, in the series and homestand finale. Today is the one, and if the Padres can win the game today, they'll have a chance to do something that they have not done once this season, and that is sweep a series. And it's so we've made this point a number of times. You can win series, like Mike Shildt says. You just keep winning series. You're a pretty good team. But you will never really put the distance between you and 500 that you want to do unless you sweep a series or two. It's just so easy to keep getting knocked back down if you don't win a few games in a row here or there. And they got the 4-game winning streak once. Last year it was the 3 was kind of the cap. That can't go on. They have to go on a bit of a run. And to do that, they got to start hitting. You're not going to win a bunch of games in a row 2-1.
Every team's got lefties. Got to figure it out.
You've got to start hitting. I think the pitching is at least strong enough that you could put together a winning streak based on the pitching. Every once in a while, though, Michael King or Matt Waldron's going to give up 4 or 5. You have to be able to win a game like that every once in a while when your starting pitching gives up 3 or 4 runs. You can't have to rely on a great outing every single time to win a game. It's good that they're winning most of those, and the bullpen is now converting most of those games into wins. But the next step, if the Padres really do want to be the good team that Mike Shildt said they were yesterday, he said literally, good teams take advantage of mistakes, and we're a good team. He said that. We can talk about that tomorrow, whether you agree with Mike Shildt or not. To take that step, though, they have to be able to win games in other fashions. And it can't just be once in a while they score 12. They have to start hitting more regularly, like better teams, like Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado can do.
Yeah, we talked about Fernando earlier and not doing the stutter step around third and his home run on Saturday night. Said he's not feeling swaggy right now. And I think tonight would be a great night to start to get that swagginess back. I want to see it. I miss it.
I mean, it's got to happen at some point.
Man.
The Padres aren't going anywhere unless some of the swagginess comes back with Tatis and Machado. And as I said earlier, I'd like to see a little bit of it from Kim as well. Ha-Seong Kim feels like a shell of himself at the bottom of the order. I mean, that guy was hitting, 5th, 3rd, 2nd last year. Now he's buried 8th, 9th.
Let off a ton.
Yeah, and I mean, we need some swagginess from all 3 of those right-handers against lefties coming up. All right, that's it for us. Annie and Elston are coming up next. Hopefully we'll get Woods back sooner rather than later. But great job, Paulie, as always, executive producer. I'm Ben Higgins. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. From all of us here at San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. So long, everybody.